It's strange how one voicemail can drag you right back to the pain you swore you'd buried. That's how it started. A single voicemail from my father, the man I hadn't spoken to in 20 years. When I was 16, he walked out on our family. No warning, no explanations, just gone. Mom tried to hold everything together, but the bills stacked higher than the hope she had left. We moved 3 times in 1 year. I worked night shifts at a diner just to help keep the lights on. And every time I saw a man pushing his kid on a swing or sitting with him at the movies, I felt that ache, the kind that doesn't fade with time, just hides in quieter corners of your chest. So when his name popped up on my phone after 2 decades, I froze. I didn't answer. I couldn't. But curiosity won over anger. Later that night, I pressed play. His voice sounded older, thinner, shakier. "Hey, Sam," he said, pausing like the word itself hurt to say. "I'm not asking for anything. I'd like to see you before it's too late." Before it's too late. What did that even mean? Was he dying? Or was that just guilt dressed up as regret? I didn't respond for 2 days. Then I found myself driving 3 hours to the small coastal town he mentioned in the message. The entire drive, my mind fought itself, half wanting to turn back, half wondering what I'd say if I didn't. When I reached the address, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked smaller, like life had slowly been erasing him. We stood there for a few seconds, silent, before he smiled and said, "You look just like your mother." I wanted to be angry, to shout, to ask why now, but all that came out was, "Why didn't you ever come back?" He looked down at his hands, because I didn't know how. We sat in that small, creaky living room for hours. He told me he'd been diagnosed with late-stage liver cancer. He'd been alone for years. No new family, no kids, just a few regrets that filled the space where love should have been. He apologized over and over until I stopped hearing words and started seeing the scared man behind him. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. He handed me a small box. Inside was a photograph, the 3 of us at the beach before everything fell apart. On the back, he'd written, "For the days I can't fix and the ones you still have ahead." That broke something in me. All those years I thought I wanted him to feel pain, but sitting there, watching his hands tremble, I realized I just wanted peace. He passed away 2 weeks later. At his funeral, it was just me, the priest, and the sound of the ocean nearby. But I didn't cry. I just whispered, "I forgive you." And somehow, that felt like finally exhaling after holding my breath for 20 years. After the funeral, I didn't go straight home. I drove back to the beach from that old photograph, the same one tucked inside the box he'd given me. The sun was setting low, painting the water in copper and gold. And for a long time, I just stood there, watching the waves roll in and out, like they were breathing for me. There's something strange about losing someone you'd already lost years ago. It's not grief in the normal sense. It's quieter. It's the ache of what could have been, the shadow of a relationship that never got its full chance to exist. I sat on the sand and thought about my childhood. How Mom used to make pancakes on Sundays, humming under her breath while the radio played those old love songs. How Dad used to toss me onto his shoulders, pretending to be a giant marching through the living room. Those memories used to hurt too much to touch, but now they felt like old letters I could finally read again. When I got home later that night, I placed the photo on my bookshelf, right next to Mom's picture. It felt right, somehow like the 2 of them were finally in the same frame again after all these years. A few days passed, and life slowly found its rhythm again. Work, laundry, dinners alone. But one night, I got a letter in the mail. The handwriting was shaky, familiar in a way that stopped me mid-step. It was from my father. He must have mailed it before he passed. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Sam," it began, "if you're reading this, I guess my time ran out. I wanted to say thank you for coming, for not slamming the door in my face. I've done a lot wrong in this life, but seeing you again, that was the one right thing I finally did." There was a paragraph that nearly made me lose it. He wrote, "I used to drive past your high school every year around your birthday. I'd park across the street, just to watch you walk out with your friends. I told myself I didn't have the right to say hi, but I never stopped being your dad, not even when I failed at it. I sat there for what felt like hours, the letter open in my hands. Tears came slow, steady. That mix of sadness and forgiveness that burns and soothes at the same time. He ended the letter with, "Don't waste your life waiting for perfect apologies. Sometimes people can only give what's left of them, and sometimes that's enough." That sentence, it stayed with me. I started noticing how often I held grudges, how many times I replayed old arguments with people I loved. For years, I thought forgiveness meant weakness, letting someone off the hook. But now I saw it differently. Forgiveness wasn't about letting them go. It was about freeing myself. A month later, I found an old voicemail from Mom, one I hadn't listened to in years. Her voice was full of that tired warmth she always carried. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, "I hope you're resting. Don't forget, you deserve to live light, not heavy." I smiled through tears. It felt like they were both still talking to me, in their own ways, across time, across mistakes. I started taking small steps toward healing, reaching out to friends I drifted from, apologizing where I needed to, forgiving where I could. Every time I did, I'd whisper, "For the days I can't fix and the ones I still have ahead." It became my quiet mantra. One evening, I visited the small church where Dad's funeral had been. The same priest was there, sweeping near the doorway. He remembered me instantly. "Your father spoke about you a lot before he passed," he said gently. "He said he was afraid you wouldn't come." I smiled faintly. "I almost didn't." The priest nodded. "But you did. That's what matters." Outside, the ocean wind carried that same scent of salt and memory. I realized then, the story wasn't about what he did wrong. It was about me learning that sometimes closure doesn't come wrapped in justice. It comes wrapped in love, even if it arrives too late. I walked along the boardwalk till the lights started flickering on. There was a small cafe I'd passed 100 times but never entered. I sat down, ordered a coffee, and watched families drift in and out, parents laughing, kids spilling sugar packets everywhere. And instead of jealousy, I felt peace. Peace that I'd lived through the worst version of love and still believed in the good kind. I took out my phone, opened the photo again, and whispered, "You did okay, old man. Not great, but okay." And somehow, I knew he heard it. Weeks turned into months. The pain softened into something that felt almost like gratitude. Because that last meeting, that single afternoon, it rewired how I looked at everything. It taught me that closure isn't a moment. It's a slow unfolding, a choice you make over and over again, even when no one says sorry the way you hoped they would. Now, when I talk about my dad, I don't flinch. I say, he made mistakes, and then I add, but he tried to make one right. And maybe that's all some people ever get to do, one right thing before the end. That realization has changed how I love, how I forgive, how I live. Because sometimes the past doesn't need rewriting, just understanding. And understanding can be enough. So, if you're holding on to something heavy tonight, a hurt that's been aging in the dark, maybe let a little light in. You don't have to forgive them today. Just stop carrying it alone. Because peace doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it starts with you. I folded his letter, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it beside the photo box. Then I turned off the light, sat by the window, and let the sound of the waves fill the room. It wasn't silence. It was something softer. It was closure. If this story stayed with you tonight, take a moment, breathe, relax, and stay a while. And if you found even a little bit of peace in it, you might want to stay for the next one too. They all carry hearts that heal slowly, one story at a time. You know that moment when your world doesn't crash all at once. It just quietly tilts, like you're standing still, but everything around you shifts just enough to make you dizzy. That was the moment I found the text. It was a Thursday night, one of those slow evenings where the air feels heavy and nothing really happens. I come home early, planning to cook dinner for Emily. We'd been together for 4 years, shared a small apartment with too many plants, not enough space, and a cat that thought he owned the place. I picked up her favorite takeout instead, just to surprise her. While I walked in, the lights were dim. Her phone was buzzing on the counter, soft little vibrations that barely made a sound. Normally, I wouldn't even think twice. We trusted each other. At least I thought we did. But something about that night felt off. You ever feel that? That gut instinct whispering, check it. So I did. I told myself I was being paranoid as I unlocked her phone. The password she'd given me months ago when we were planning a trip. I scrolled through messages, not looking for anything, just skimming. And then I froze. A message from a contact saved as Aaron, work. Last night was everything. Can't stop thinking about you. I stared at it. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I'd be sick. I clicked on the thread. More messages. Laughing. Heart emojis. Plans to meet again. Photos. A hotel room. Her smile. The same one she used to give me. I didn't even hear the door open behind me. She stepped in, humming softly, grocery bag in hand, the picture of normal, until she saw her phone in my hand. Her face drained of color. The room went silent. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. It was like time had stopped, just her eyes, wide and trembling, and me trying not to shake. Finally, I asked, "Who's Aaron?" My voice didn't even sound like mine. She swallowed hard. "Please, Jake, don't." "Don't what?" I said, louder this time. "Don't read what you wrote." Tears filled her eyes instantly. She dropped the bag, groceries spilling across the floor, oranges rolling under the table, milk spreading slowly. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "It didn't mean anything." I laughed, that kind of dry, broken laugh you don't recognize. "Didn't mean anything? You were in a hotel room with him." She shook her head frantically. "It was one time. I swear it was one time. I was lonely, Jake. You've been so distant lately." That hit like a slap. Because, yeah, maybe I've been distant. Work had been brutal, long nights, endless deadlines. But I never stopped loving her. Not for a second. "You were lonely?" I said quietly. "So your solution was to find someone else to fill the space?" She broke down, sobbing. "I didn't plan it, I swear. It just happened." That phrase, "it just happened," it's a strange thing. Because cheating doesn't just happen. You make 1,000 small choices before it does. You reply, you flirt, you meet, and then one day, you cross the line. And once you do, you can never uncross it. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't cry. I just stood there, staring at her like she was a stranger in my living room. After a while, she whispered, "Please say something." And all I could manage was, "I don't even know who you are right now." That night, I slept on the couch. Couldn't even close my eyes. Every time I did, I saw her with him. The hotel, the messages, the way she smiled in that photo. By morning, she was gone. Her closet half empty, her key on the counter. Just like that. 4 years reduced to silence, and a pile of laundry that still smelled like her shampoo. Days blurred together after that. I didn't go to work. Didn't talk to anyone. Friends called, texted, came by. I ignored them all. Because how do you even begin to explain something like that? One night, about a week later, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, she was standing there, puffy eyes, trembling hands, holding a letter. "I know you don't owe me anything," she said, "but please read this." She left it on the table and walked away before I could say a word. It took me hours to open it. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, like she'd written it through tears. "Jake, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to understand why. It wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because I stopped feeling like you saw me." That line hit hard, because the truth was, she wasn't wrong. I had stopped seeing her. Not on purpose, life just got in the way. Late nights at work, canceled date nights, unanswered texts. And she, feeling unseen, drifted into the first pair of eyes that looked at her differently. But still, that didn't make it okay. Pain doesn't justify betrayal. Her letter continued. "When I was with him, I felt wanted again. But the second it ended, all I could think about was how much I destroyed. You're the only person who's ever really known me, Jake. I hate myself for breaking that." I sat there, reading those words over and over until my hands went numb. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I just felt tired. So deeply tired. That night, I went for a drive. No destination, just roads and headlights. And somewhere along that empty stretch of highway, I realized I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want closure. I just wanted peace. When I got home, I burned the letter. Not out of hatred, but because I didn't need it anymore. Some things are better left as ashes. When I got home, I burned the letter. Not out of hatred, but because I didn't need it anymore. Some things are better left as ashes. Weeks passed. I got back into a rhythm, work, gym, late night walks. But something in me had shifted permanently. You can't go through betrayal and come out untouched. One evening, I saw her again by accident. She was at the same cafe we used to visit. Our eyes met for a second, and everything froze. She smiled sadly. I nodded once. No words, just understanding. And in that moment, I realized I didn't hate her. I just pitted the version of her that made that mistake, and the version of me who thought love alone could prevent it. But that wasn't the end of our story, because a month later, I got a call, one that changed everything again. It was her sister. She said Emily was in the hospital. I didn't even think, I just drove. Heart racing, mind blank. All those feelings I thought I'd buried came flooding back at once. When I reached the hospital, I saw her lying there, pale, fragile, tubes running across her arms. She looked nothing like the woman I remembered. The doctor told me she'd been in a car accident. Drunk driver. Wrong place, wrong time. I sat by her bed for hours, just watching her breathe. And even though I told myself I was over her, I realized I wasn't. Not completely. Because love, real love, it doesn't just switch off. It fades, flickers, maybe changes form, but it never fully disappears. She woke up eventually. Her eyes met mine, surprised, then soft. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did," I said quietly. She tried to smile, but tears slipped down her cheeks instead. "I didn't think you'd ever want to see me again." I sighed. Neither did I. And that's where I'll pause this story for now. Because what happened next, what she told me in that hospital room, changed everything I thought I knew about betrayal, love, and forgiveness. When she woke up fully, the beeping of the monitors filled the silence between us. I hadn't planned on staying, but something about seeing her like that made leaving impossible. She looked smaller, weaker, like the weight of what she'd done had finally caught up to her. For the first time, she didn't look like the person who had broken me. She looked like someone who had been broken too. She turned her head slowly. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. I shook my head. "You don't need to say anything." "I have to," she insisted, her voice trembling. "I need you to know the truth. Not the version you saw, not the one I made up when I lied to you. The real one." I stayed quiet, even though part of me didn't want to hear it. I'd spent weeks trying to forget every detail, and now here she was dragging it all back to the surface. But the look in her eyes wasn't defensive. It was hollow, like she'd already punished herself far more than I ever could. She took a breath. It wasn't supposed to happen. That night with Aaron wasn't even planned. But after it did, I tried to end it. I told him it was a mistake. He didn't take it well. My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Her hands fidgeted with the blanket. "He threatened me. Said if I told anyone or stopped seeing him, he'd tell you first. He knew where you worked, where we lived. He said he'd ruin you just to hurt me." I frowned, trying to process her words. "You're saying he blackmailed you?" Tears gathered in her eyes again. "I'm saying I was stupid enough to let it go that far before realizing how dangerous he was." I leaned back, my thoughts spinning. I wanted to believe her, but I'd seen the messages. The smiles. The way she talked to him like she was happy. "He didn't make you smile in those pictures," I said quietly. She flinched. "No, that part. That was me trying to pretend I wasn't terrified. Trying to convince him that everything was fine, so he'd let go." Her voice cracked. "The day you found out, I was actually planning to tell you. I swear I was. But when I saw your face, I knew you'd never believe me. And honestly, I didn't blame you. I sat there, staring at her, my heart torn in two directions. One side screamed that she was lying again, trying to soften the truth. The other side, the one that still loved her, heard something real in her voice, something that felt too raw to be fake. Then she said something I'll never forget. He showed up the night before the accident. We argued in the parking lot. I told him I was done, that I was going to tell you everything. He grabbed me, Jake. He tried to pull me into his car. I fought him off and ran. That's when I called my sister. I was crying so hard I didn't see the other car coming. I blinked, my throat tightening. You mean the accident? Yeah, she said. It wasn't just bad luck. It was me running from him. That's the truth. For a long time, the only sound was the steady beep of her monitor. I didn't know what to think anymore. The world I'd built in my head, the one where she was simply the villain, started to crack. There were too many details she couldn't have made up. Too many things that explained what didn't make sense before. She looked at me with watery eyes. You don't have to forgive me. I just wanted you to know it wasn't all what it looked like. I made mistakes, Jake, but I didn't stop loving you. Not even for a day. My chest ached hearing that. Because even after everything, even after the nights I'd spent hating her, some stupid part of me still wanted to believe her. Still wanted to protect her. I don't know what to say, I admitted. Then don't, she whispered. Just be here for a while. That's enough. So I stayed. Days turned into weeks. I helped her recover, brought her food, drove her to appointments. It wasn't forgiveness, at least not yet, but it was something close. A quiet truce. People around me started asking questions. Friends wondered why I was helping her. My sister called me crazy. She cheated, Jake. You don't owe her a thing. They were right. But when you've loved someone that deeply, logic doesn't always win. Sometimes your heart just does what it does, and you live with the mess later. A month later, Emily was discharged. She walked with a cane now, her legs still weak. I helped her move into a small apartment across town. She thanked me with a hug that lasted longer than it should have. I don't know how to make this right, she said softly. You can't, I said, but you can start over. She smiled faintly. Would you ever want to be part of that start over? I hesitated. I don't know yet. Maybe someday. But right now, I just need to breathe again. She nodded, tears welling again. That's fair. I thought that was the end. That we'd go our separate ways, heal in our own corners of the world. But life doesn't always tie things up neatly. Because a few weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a low, cold voice said, "You think she told you everything?" It was him, Aaron. My stomach dropped. What do you want? He laughed quietly. Just to remind you that you're not as smart as you think. She didn't tell you half of it. Before I could say anything, he hung up. That night, I drove to Emily's apartment. She opened the door, instantly sensing something was wrong. "Jake," he called me. I said. Her face went pale. "What did he say?" "That you didn't tell me everything." Her hand started to tremble. "Jake, listen to me. He's dangerous. You can't." "Then tell me the truth." I interrupted. "All of it. No more half versions." She sank onto the couch, covering her face. "He recorded us," she whispered. "What?" "He filmed us that night without telling me. Said he'd release it if I ever spoke up. That's why I didn't go to the police. That's why I ran that night." My blood went cold. "You mean he still has it?" "I don't know. He said he deleted it. But with him, I don't trust anything." I stood there in silence, anger boiling inside me. Not at her this time, but at him, at what he'd done, at how he'd turned something already broken into something cruel. "I'm going to find him," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "Kake, no, please, don't make it worse." But it was already too late. I made up my mind. The next day, I tracked him down. He worked at a nearby marketing firm. Sleek office, nice car, smug attitude. I waited in the parking lot until he came out. When he saw me, his smirk widened. Well, the boyfriend." I stepped closer. "You're done playing with her?" He raised an eyebrow. "Or what?" I didn't plan what happened next. It was one of those moments where emotion overrides everything. My fist connected with his jaw before I even realized I'd swung. He hit the ground hard, clutching his face. "Stay away from her." I said through gritted teeth. "If you ever come near her again, I swear." He laughed bitterly. "You think hitting me fixes what she did?" "No," I said, "but make sure you never touch her again." Then I walked away. No police came after me. No messages followed. For once, he disappeared. Like he finally understood I wasn't going to let him haunt either of us anymore. Weeks passed. Emily started smiling again. Real smiles this time, not the ones she faked before. Sometimes we'd have coffee together, talk about nothing. There was no label, no plan, just quiet companionship built from ruins. One evening, as the rain tapped against her window, she looked at me and said, "You saved me, Jake." I shook my head. "You save yourself. I just showed up when it mattered." She reached for my hand. "Still, thank you." We didn't get back together, not in the way people expect, but we built something better, something honest. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about going back. It's about letting go, gently, and finding peace in knowing you both survived it. Months later, she moved to another city for a new job. Before she left, she hugged me one last time. "You'll find someone who loves you right," she said. I smiled. Maybe I already did, just not in the way I expected. When she walked away that day, I didn't feel the pain I expected. Just calm, like a storm that had finally passed. That night, I sat on my balcony, the rain still falling softly, and thought about how love can twist, break, and still somehow teach you something beautiful in the end. And maybe that's the point. Maybe every heartbreak isn't about losing someone. It's about finding the version of yourself who still believes in love after everything. So if you're listening to this right now, maybe you've been through something like that. Maybe you've been broken, betrayed, or left behind. Just know this, you'll heal too. You'll wake up one day and realize you made it through the worst part. And when that day comes, don't forget to come back for more stories like this one. Because sometimes hearing how others survived love reminds you that you can too. He said I was overreacting until he saw what I found. When you live with someone long enough, you start to recognize the rhythm of their life. The sound of their keys in the bowl, the way they sigh before bed, the tone in their voice when something's off. Lately, my boyfriend, Drew, had changed that rhythm. His phone started living face down on the table. He'd go outside for calls with work that never seemed to end. And his laughter, the kind that used to belong to me, now belonged to someone else on the other side of that glowing screen. At first, I told myself it was stress. Maybe his boss was giving him a hard time again. But that little whisper in my gut wouldn't shut up. It said, something's wrong. One night, I was washing dishes after dinner when his phone buzzed on the counter. Normally, I'd ignore it. Trust is everything, right? But the name that flashed on the screen wasn't his coworker. It was M, and right under it, the preview said, "Last night was perfect. Can't stop thinking about you." My heart stopped. My fingers went cold, soap dripping down like it didn't matter anymore. When Drew came back from a shower, I asked him straight out, "Who's M?" He froze, just for a split second, but I saw it. The microsecond of panic. Then he laughed, like I was being ridiculous. "Babe, she's from work. Emily from accounting. We had a late meeting, that's all. That's all." But then why did his voice shake a little when he said it? Why did his hand go for the phone faster than usual? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that buzz in my head, seeing that message. I wanted to trust him, I really did, but that whisper in my gut turned into a roar. The next day, Drew left early for gym before work. Except he didn't go to the gym. I knew because I drove there. His car wasn't in the parking lot. Instead, I followed the route he usually took, heart pounding against my ribs. He wasn't hard to find. Parked near the old cafe we used to go to every Sunday morning. Except this time, he wasn't with me. He was sitting across from a girl with long auburn hair, her hand over his. She leaned in, laughing the way I used to make him laugh. And that's when something inside me just went quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't even storm out of the car. I just watched, every second carving itself into my chest. Then I took a photo, because I knew he'd deny it later. That night, I printed the photo and left it on his pillow. I didn't wait for him to come home. I just sat in the kitchen with the lights off, listening to the sound of my own breathing. He came in around 11, smelling like her perfume, not mine. When he saw the photo, his face drained of color. "Babe, it's not what it looks like." I actually laughed. "You're holding her hand, Drew. What does it look like to you?" He ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a man trying to find an escape route. "I messed up, okay? But it's nothing serious. It just happened a few times. I didn't mean for it to." To what? I cut him off. To hurt me? To make me question every single day we spent together. His eyes dropped to the floor. Silence filled the space between us, heavy and ugly. I didn't throw anything, didn't scream. I just told him to leave. But as soon as he stepped out, I collapsed. Everything hit me at once. The late nights, the lies, the moments he kissed me while thinking of her. It all replayed like a cruel movie in my head. The next morning, I woke up to a text from him. "Please don't tell anyone. Let's talk tonight. I still love you." That was the line that finally broke me. Because if you really love someone, you wouldn't destroy the trust that kept everything alive. Still, a part of me needed closure. So I agreed to meet him. But I had a plan. When we sat across from each other that night, he tried to cry, to make himself the victim. "I made a mistake," he said, "but you can't just throw everything away." I leaned back, calm, quiet. "I'm not throwing anything away, Drew. You already did that for me." He blinked, confused, until I handed him an envelope. Inside were screenshots, the photo from the cafe, and a note that said, "Send this to her before she finds out the hard way." Then I stood up, walked out, and didn't look back. He called me 22 times that night. I didn't answer once. A week later, I heard from a mutual friend that him broke up with him after seeing those photos. She called him manipulative. Guess she learned faster than I did. It's been 6 months now. I'm still healing, still rebuilding. Some days, the loneliness hits hard. But other days, I wake up and realize I'm finally breathing without that ache in my chest. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about getting even. It's about walking away and knowing they'll never find someone who loved them the way you did. The first few weeks after Drew left, my apartment felt like a museum of everything I'd lost. His coffee mug on the shelf, the jacket still hanging behind the door, the faint smell of his cologne that refused to leave my sheets. I try to clean it all out, but healing isn't something you can scrub away. At night, I'd lie in bed and replay his voice in my head. Not the apologies, not the lies, just the way he used to say my name. That's what hurt most, the softness I thought was real. Then one morning, I woke up, made coffee, and decided to do something wild live. I started running again, joined a photography class, even booked a solo weekend trip to the mountains, something I'd always wanted, but he'd always said was too risky. The silence started feeling less like punishment and more like peace. But of course, peace never lasts long when someone like Drew can't stand losing control. It started with small things, an innocent text, "Hope you're okay." Then a week later, another, "I miss you." By the third message, he said, "I'm not the same without you." I didn't respond to any of them. I refused to open that door again. But one night, I came home from work, and he was sitting outside my apartment, just waiting. "Drew, what the hell are you doing here?" He looked thinner, tired, the kind of tired that comes from guilt. "I just want to talk," he said quietly. "Please." I crossed my arms. Part of me wanted to slam the door. Another part wanted to finally hear what he'd say when he couldn't hide behind a screen. So I let him talk. He told me he'd ended things with them, that he'd been going to therapy, that he realized what he'd thrown away. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said. "You were the only one who actually loved me for me." I laughed, but it wasn't cruel. It was sad. "You don't miss me, Drew. You miss control. You miss someone who forgave you too easily." His eyes filled with tears, maybe real ones this time. "You're right," he said, voice cracking. "But please, I just want a chance to fix it." There was a time when those words would have broken me open, when hearing him cry would have made me soften. But standing there, seeing him vulnerable didn't feel powerful. It felt final. You can't fix something you shattered on purpose, I said quietly. You can only live with the pieces. He nodded, wiped his face, and walked away. That was the last time I saw him. For a while, I thought that would be the end. But life had one more twist to throw at me. 3 months later, I was at a friend's birthday party. Laughter, lights, music. And for the first time in ages, I actually felt light. That's when I met Noah. He wasn't like Drew. There was no charm coded in manipulation. No sweet words that tasted like lies. He listened when I spoke. He didn't try to fix me. He just stood beside me. We started seeing each other slowly. No rush, no pretending. One night, we were walking by the lake. The air cool, the city glowing on the water. Noah said softly, "You know, I can tell someone broke your heart real bad." I smiled, the kind that comes after pain. Yeah, but he also taught me how to protect it. He squeezed my hand gently. No promises, no pressure, just presence. For the first time in a long time, that was enough. A few weeks later, I got a random message on social media. It was from Em, the girl Drew cheated with. At first, I wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won. She wrote, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know he was still with you. He told me you two were over. When I found out the truth, I left him. Thank you for helping me see it before I got in too deep." I sat there staring at the message, and for some reason, I smiled. Because maybe that was the real closure. Not from Drew, but from another woman who survived the same lies. I replied, "Thank you. We both deserve better." After that, I blocked his number for good. I stopped checking his socials. I stopped wondering if he regretted it, because by then, it didn't matter. The pain didn't vanish overnight. Heartbreak never does. But it stopped being the main character in my life. Instead, I started waking up to sunlight and music instead of tears. Started cooking for myself again, laughing at dumb movies, sending my friends random memes at 2 a.m. It was quiet healing. Not the kind that makes a big speech, but the kind that just happens one morning when you realize the hurt doesn't sting anymore. A year later, I saw Drew's name pop up on my people you may know list. He looked older, still chasing the same smiles from different faces. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. He could keep chasing new beginnings while I finally had mine. Because real revenge isn't about hurting back. It's about becoming untouchable. It's about finding peace in a life they'll never be part of again. When I think back to that moment, standing in the kitchen, seeing that text from, "I don't feel heartbreak anymore," I feel gratitude, because that message was the start of everything real. It burned the bridge I was too scared to cross and forced me to build a new one. Now, when I lie in bed, I don't count the ways I was hurt. I count the ways I came back. And if Drew ever thinks about me, I hope he remembers not what he lost, but why he lost it. Because I didn't stop loving him when he cheated. I stopped loving him when I finally started loving myself. Subscribe if you believe heartbreaks don't end you. They rebuild you. You ever have that one moment that splits your life in two, before and after? For me, it was a Sunday morning. Rain tapping on the windows, coffee steaming on the table, and my husband, Ethan, smiling like the world was perfect. He kissed my forehead, said, "Don't forget your umbrella," and left for work. But that was the last morning I looked at him the same way. See, I wasn't the type to snoop. I trusted him. We'd been together 8 years, married 5. He was calm, gentle, the kind of man who fixed leaky faucets and made pancakes on Sundays. But people like him. They hide storms behind steady smiles. It started small, a feeling. The way he locked his phone now, face down every time. The late nights at the office. The cologne that wasn't his usual one. I told myself I was overthinking. That marriage was about trust, not suspicion. But when someone you love changes, your soul feels it before your brain admits it. One night, while he showered, his phone buzzed on the counter. Just one message. I didn't want to look. I swear I didn't, but curiosity whispered louder than fear. It said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Missed you today." No name, just a heart emoji. My stomach turned cold. He came out of the shower humming like nothing was wrong. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I noticed how distant his eyes had become. I didn't confront him that night, or the next. I needed proof. I needed truth. So I waited. The next few days I watched him closely. His patterns, his tone, the way his smile never quite reached his eyes anymore. One evening, I told him I had a late meeting at work. He kissed me goodbye and left first. I followed, driving slowly behind him, my heart racing faster with every mile. He didn't go to the office. He went to a hotel, and when I saw her step out of the car, the same woman from his office Christmas party, the one who'd laughed too easily at his jokes, I felt something inside me snap. But instead of storming in, I parked across the street, shaking, crying, silent. Because watching was worse than hearing. Seeing was worse than knowing. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I just stared at the ceiling, numb, wondering when exactly our marriage had ended. Was it in that hotel lobby or months before when he started building walls I didn't see? The next morning, I played my role perfectly. Coffee, smile, soft, good morning. He smiled back, thinking I was the same woman he could keep in the dark. He had no idea I'd seen everything. Over the next week, I planned carefully. Not revenge, not yet. Just a reckoning. I copied the message from his phone, took photos of the hotel receipt from his jacket, even grabbed a few printed work emails that didn't match his schedule. Every piece of proof felt like a small shard in my hand. Painful, sharp, necessary. Finally, I sat him down one quiet evening. The house smelled of dinner. The rain outside made the world feel smaller. "Ethan," I said, voice steady, "can I ask you something?" He looked up from his laptop. "Of course." "Do you love me?" He blinked, confused. "Of course I do. Why would you even?" I slid my phone across the table, showing him the photos, the messages, the timestamps. His face drained of color. The kind of silence that follows betrayal filled the room, thick, suffocating. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he whispered, "It's not what it looks like." I almost laughed. "Really? Because it looks like you've been meeting her at a hotel while I've been cooking your dinner." He ran his hand through his hair. "It was a mistake, okay? It wasn't serious." That word, mistake, hit harder than any confession could. "Not serious?" I repeated quietly. "You risked our marriage for something that wasn't serious." He stood, pacing. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I looked at him and realized how strangers could live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, share the same name, and still never truly know each other. "You should go," I said simply. "Pack a bag." He looked stunned. "You're kicking me out?" "No," I said softly. "I'm setting myself free." He hesitated, like he wanted to argue, then saw in my eyes that I meant it. He left quietly, taking only his keys and coat. When the door closed, I broke. Not from heartbreak, from relief. The kind that hurts before it heals. That night, I sat on the floor with a glass of wine, staring at the wedding photo on the shelf. Two smiling faces frozen in time. I didn't cry. I just whispered to it, "We tried." A week passed. Then two. He called, texted, begged. Said he'd end it with her. Said he couldn't sleep without me. Said he loved me. But words mean nothing when trust is gone. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. One evening, while cleaning out his drawer, I found something, a small velvet box tucked behind old receipts. Inside was a necklace, gold, delicate, and engraved with "Forever Am." My name. I stared at it, confusion mixing with anger. Why would he have this hidden away if he'd been planning to leave me? That's when I realized maybe there was more I didn't know. The next day, I called one of his co-workers, someone I trusted. At first, she was hesitant. Then she said quietly, "He's been a mess at work. Ever since his dad got diagnosed, he's been falling apart. The affair had started around then." My chest tightened. His dad. I'd known he was sick, but Ethan had said it was under control. Suddenly, everything shifted. Not the betrayal, but the understanding behind it. He wasn't cheating because he didn't love me. He was running from something he couldn't face. and I hated that I still cared. That night, I sat by the window, necklace in hand, thinking about the man I married. Not the one who lied, but the one who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms. Forgiveness wasn't on the table, but closure, maybe. The next morning, I called him. "Come over," I said. He arrived looking exhausted. Hollow eyes, stubble, that same gray hoodie he always wore when he was lost. We didn't speak for a long time, just silence, the kind that hums with everything unspoken. Finally, I placed the necklace on the table. He looked at it, then at me. "I was going to give that to you on our anniversary," he said quietly. "Before everything went wrong. Before you decided someone else was easier to love," I replied. He flinched but didn't argue. "I know sorry doesn't fix it," he said, "but I am. For everything. I wish I could take it all back." I nodded slowly. "I know, but some things can't be rewound." He wiped his eyes, stood, and said something I didn't expect. "You're stronger than me, Em. Always were." When he left this time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt final, and somehow that was enough. The house felt different after he left. Quieter, yes, but not empty. There was a strange peace in it, like the walls were finally breathing again. Days blurred into weeks. I got used to making 1 cup of coffee instead of 2. I got used to silence instead of his footsteps down the hall. It wasn't loneliness anymore. It was space. For the first time in years, I heard my own thoughts clearly. At first, they hurt. They were full of what-ifs and maybes. What if I'd asked him sooner? Maybe if I'd noticed the signs earlier, we could have fixed it. But love doesn't always break suddenly. It erodes quietly, like sand slipping away from under your feet. I spent my evenings walking, sometimes around the neighborhood, sometimes down by the river. It became my ritual, watching the sunset, feeling the wind, learning how to exist without waiting for his car to pull into the driveway. One night, I sat by the river and saw an old couple walking hand in hand. They weren't talking, just moving in rhythm, step after step. Something about that image hit me. It wasn't about perfection. It was about staying when it's hard. But you can only stay if both people are still there. A few days later, I got a message from Ethan. Not the usual, "please call me" kind. This one just said, "Dad's gone." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I drove straight to his parents' house. His mom hugged me without hesitation, tears already running down her face. Ethan was standing near the window, staring at nothing. When he turned to look at me, his eyes were red, not just from crying, but from months of exhaustion. We didn't talk about what had happened between us. Not then. Grief didn't leave room for that. I just stood next to him, and we stayed there, 2 broken people holding pieces of the same memory. After the funeral, I stayed to help his mom with the arrangements. Ethan barely spoke, but one night when we were cleaning the kitchen, he said softly, "I didn't deserve to have you come." I looked up. "It's not about deserving." He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "You were the only person who ever made me feel safe. And I ruined that." I didn't respond. Some truths don't need words. When I finally went home that night, I cried. Not because I wanted him back, but because I finally understood how love and pain could exist in the same memory. The days after that were lighter. I started journaling again. Painting too. Little things that reminded me I existed outside of him. One morning, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a letter, handwritten neat, familiar. It was from Ethan. He wrote, "I've been trying to fix things at work, in my head, in my life. But nothing feels real anymore. The only time I feel like I'm doing something right is when I think about you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know that I'm not running anymore." I folded the letter and sat there for a long time. Maybe in another life, another version of us, it could have worked. But not this one. Instead of replying, I took the necklace he'd bought me, went to the river, and watched the sunrise. I dropped it into the water and whispered, "Goodbye." The sun rose higher, painting the sky gold, and I swear it felt like the world was exhaling with me. Over the next few months, I rebuilt, quietly, gently. I redecorated the living room. New curtains, new colors. I even changed the scent of the house. lavender instead of sandalwood. I wanted every trace of the old version of my life to fade. One evening, I ran into someone new. His name was Ryan. We met at a bookstore. Cliché, I know, but he had the kind of calm voice that made silence comfortable again. He wasn't trying to fix me. He just saw me. We talked for hours that first night about everything. Books, travel, loss. I didn't mention Ethan. I didn't have to. Ryan wasn't there to fill a void. He was there to remind me that love could be soft again. Over time, he became a quiet part of my days. We'd walk together in the evenings, the same way that old couple had, not needing to say much. One night, as the rain started to fall, Ryan looked at me and said, "You look like someone who's finally come home." And I smiled because maybe I had. Not to him, not to a house or a person, but to myself. It took me a long time to understand that endings aren't failures, they're turning points. The moment the storm clears and you finally see what's left standing. Ethan and I never spoke again. I heard through a mutual friend that he'd moved to another city, started therapy, tried to make peace with his past. I wished him well, not because I still loved him, but because I didn't want to carry the weight of hate anymore. Sometimes I still dream about him. Not the betrayal part, but the small moments, the pancakes on Sundays, the way he'd hum while shaving. Those memories don't hurt anymore. They're just reminders that I once loved deeply, and that's something I'll never regret. Now, when it rains, I don't feel that ache in my chest. I feel gratitude for the pain that taught me boundaries, for the silence that taught me peace, and for the ending that taught me how to begin again. If you're listening to this right now, wondering if you'll ever stop hurting, trust me, you will. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not about forgetting. It's about growing around the pain until it becomes part of your strength. So breathe, let go, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful stories come after the heartbreak ends. If you felt something from this story, if it made you think about your own healing, your own strength, don't forget to stay here with me. There's a new story waiting every night, and you deserve to fall asleep knowing you're not alone. He said he'd never lie to me again, and I actually believed him. That line kept echoing in my head like a broken record. It had been 3 weeks since the night everything fell apart, but the sound of his voice still played in my mind. Calm, steady, practiced. The kind of tone you'd use when trying to convince someone that fire doesn't burn. His name was Tyler. We'd been together for 4 years. We met in college. He was a guy who sat 2 rows behind me in psychology class, always doodling in his notebook instead of paying attention. I used to tease him about it. He'd grin and say, "I'm just studying you instead." It was charming then. Now, that line feels like foreshadowing. For the first couple of years, we were inseparable. Coffee dates that turned into study sessions that turned into late-night drives that turned into long talks about the future. We'd sit by the river behind campus, watching the city lights reflect on the water, and he'd say, "We'll have that someday." He used to make me believe that someday was real. After graduation, we both got jobs in the city. Things were good for a while. Not perfect, but good enough. Then, little cracks started to show. Missed calls, canceled plans, moments where he'd drift away mid-conversation. When I asked if something was wrong, he'd smile and say, "Just tired, babe. You know how it is." But something about the way he said it, it never sat right. It's strange how your body knows before your heart does. I started feeling anxious all the time, waiting for my phone to buzz, waiting for his explanations to make sense. Then came the night I'll never forget. It was raining, that kind of soft drizzle that makes the whole world quiet. Tyler had texted saying he was working late. I believed him. I always did. Until my friend Megan sent me a photo. It wasn't just any photo. It was Tyler, my Tyler, at a bar downtown, his hand on another girl's back, leaning close like they were sharing a secret. At first, I laughed. That's what shock does. It makes you react wrong. I told myself it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe it was someone from work. Maybe it was nothing. But then I zoomed in. He wasn't just smiling. He was smiling the way he used to smile at me. That's when my stomach dropped. I didn't text him. I didn't call. I just sat there, staring at that picture until the rain outside turned into a full storm. When he finally came home around midnight, his shirt smelled faintly like perfume, not mine. I asked, "Did you have a good night at work?" He hesitated, just long enough to give himself away, then nodded. "Yeah, long shift. I'm beat." Something inside me broke. Not in a dramatic, screaming way. More like a quiet snap. The kind that comes when you realize the person standing in front of you isn't who you thought they were. I held up my phone and showed him the picture. His eyes widened. Not with guilt, but with calculation. You could almost see his mind racing to find the right lie. He sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and said, "It's not what it looks like. Those words. God, I hate those words." We argued until 3 a.m. He swore it was innocent. Just a coworker, just drinks, just a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe him so badly. Because if I didn't, then I'd have to face what that meant. That I'd wasted 4 years of love on a lie. But deep down, I already knew. The next few days were tense. We barely spoke. When we did, it was shallow, polite, fake. Then, one afternoon, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it. I wasn't that kind of person. But something told me, this time I had to. The message was from a contact named Kay. It said, "Last night was amazing. I can still smell your cologne." My hands started shaking. There was no more pretending. When he came out of the shower, towel around his waist, I just held up his phone and said, "Who's Kay?" He froze, then said quietly, "You weren't supposed to see that." That sentence told me everything. I packed a bag that night. He begged me not to go, said it was a mistake, said he didn't mean to hurt me, said he'd do anything. But I couldn't listen anymore. There's something about betrayal. Once it happens, even the truth sounds like a lie. I moved in with Megan for a while. She tried to cheer me up with girls' nights, wine, bad movies. It helped a little, but mostly I just felt hollow. Tyler kept texting. Apologies, promises, songs we used to love. He said he'd change. He said he'd go to therapy. He said he'd wait forever. And for a second, I almost gave in. Until the night I saw her. I was grabbing coffee before work, and there she was, the girl from the photo. She looked younger than me, maybe by a couple of years. Pretty in that effortless way that made me instantly insecure. She was with him. They were laughing. And then they kissed. Right there, in public, like I'd never existed. I left the coffee shop without saying a word. Drove straight to the river we used to sit by. The same place he once told me he'd love me forever. It started to rain again, and that's when I decided I wasn't going to let him break me twice. That night, I made a plan. Not to hurt him, no. To show him what it felt like to lose something real. When I got home that night, I stood in front of the mirror for almost an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just really looked at myself. I saw someone I barely recognized. Someone who had given everything. Her love, her patience, her trust. All to someone who treated it like spare change. And I whispered, "No more." The next morning, I blocked his number. Deleted his pictures. Wiped his messages. But I didn't block her, Kay. No, I needed to know what she was like. Her name was Kayla. I found her profile easily. Pictures of coffee dates, quotes about finding peace, and one photo, the one that made my blood freeze, of her wearing my necklace. The same silver chain Tyler gave me on our 1-year anniversary. He used to say, "It looks like it was made for you." Now it was sitting on her collarbone. That's when my quiet revenge began. I didn't want to scream or ruin their lives. I wanted to let time and truth do the heavy lifting. So I started posting again. Not the sad, broken kind of post people expect after a breakup, no. I look good, happy, strong. Pictures of me hiking, smiling, living. Each caption carefully chosen, subtle, but sharp enough that he'd know I was healing without him. And it worked. Within 2 weeks, Tyler was watching my stories. Every single one. Then the messages started coming from fake accounts. Short ones like, "You look amazing," or "Miss you." It was him. I knew it. I didn't respond. Silence is the loudest sound when someone's used to control. Meanwhile, life started getting weirdly poetic. A few mutual friends started talking, whispering things. Turns out, Kayla wasn't exactly loyal either. Apparently, while Tyler was begging for my forgiveness, Kayla was already flirting with someone else from their office. And not just anyone, Tyler's own manager. It was poetic justice in real time. One Friday night, I went out with Megan and a few friends to a rooftop bar downtown. The same one from that photo. I hadn't planned anything, but fate clearly had other ideas. Because halfway through my drink, I saw them. Tyler and Kayla. She was laughing, phone in hand, not even pretending to listen to him. He looked drained, not guilty, just tired. And then, like something out of a movie, she got up, said something, and left with another guy. Tyler just sat there, alone. I should have walked away, but instead I walked right up to him. He froze when he saw me. "Hey," I said calmly, setting my glass down. He swallowed hard. "Hey, you look different." "Yeah," I said, smiling slightly. It's what happens when someone stops lying to me. For a second, he didn't speak. Then he said quietly, "I messed up. I know I did. But she wasn't you." I leaned in just enough to let him feel it, that sting of regret. "No," I said, "she wasn't. But now you know how it feels, don't you? To watch someone you love walk away and not look back." He blinked fast, trying to hold it together. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt free. I stood up, finished my drink, and said, "Take care, Tyler. Try not to make someone else pay for what you broke in me." Then I left. That moment, that walk out of the bar, felt like closing a book I'd been stuck in for years. But revenge? It wasn't over. Because the next week, I got a message from Kayla. "Hey, I think we should talk." I almost laughed, but curiosity won. So I met her at a small cafe downtown. She looked nervous. "Look," she said, fidgeting with her sleeve, "I didn't know about you at first. He told me you two were done. By the time I found out, it was too late." I didn't say anything, just watched her. She sighed, but then he started lying to me too. Same stories, same excuses. I saw his texts to you, the ones he never deleted. It's like he wanted to keep both worlds. I raised an eyebrow. "So why are you telling me this?" She leaned forward. "Because I want him to feel what he did to us." I didn't answer right away. I just sipped my coffee, thinking there was something poetic about two women, both betrayed, teaming up to bring down the man who played them. And maybe, just maybe, it was the closure I needed. So we planned it. Not something cruel or illegal, just honest. A way to make him see himself. We waited until the office party, the one where everyone would be there, including his boss. Kayla had access to the event's presentation system. And when it was time for Tyler's Employee of the Month slideshow, instead of the usual stats and photos, the screen lit up with a different slideshow. Screenshots, messages, pictures, every lie, every double text, every, "You're the only one I love." The room went dead silent. Tyler stood frozen in the middle of it, pale as a ghost. His boss looked disgusted. People started whispering, and then I walked in, not dramatically, just quietly, confidently. Kayla smiled faintly from across the room. Tyler's eyes locked on mine. "You did this?" he whispered. I smiled. "No, you did." And then I left. He was fired within a week. Not because of the cheating, but because it reflected poorly on company image. Kayla quit soon after and moved to another city. As for me, I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel cruel. I just felt done. Months passed. I found a new job, a new rhythm. Started painting again. I even met someone, Ryan, quiet, kind, steady. He didn't make promises. He just showed up. Every day, without excuses. One evening, as the sun set over the river, Ryan asked, "Do you ever think about him?" I smiled softly. "Sometimes, but only to remind myself how far I've come." He nodded, then took my hand. "You deserve better, and I'm glad you finally believe that." And for the first time in years, I really did. Tyler tried reaching out once more, an email this time. Just a few lines. "I finally understand what I lost. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. Some stories don't need a sequel. That night, I went back to that same river one last time. The city lights shimmered on the water. The same spot where we used to dream of someday. And I whispered, I got my someday, just not with you. Then I smiled and walked away. If you felt something from this story, if it made you think about your own healing, your own strength, don't forget to stay here with me. There's a new story waiting every night, and you deserve to fall asleep knowing you're not alone. He said he loved me, right before he made me question what love even means. I never thought betrayal could come wrapped in a voice that sounded so gentle. When I first met Eric, I wasn't even looking for love. I was done with it, done with men, done with promises, done with pretending I was fine when I clearly wasn't. But he didn't rush. He wasn't like the others. He listened. He noticed the little things. How I liked my coffee, how I paused before answering tough questions, how I always looked away when something hurt too much. He made me feel seen. And that's where it all began, with being seen. Because when you've spent years being invisible, even the wrong person can feel like the right one for a while. We met at a friend's small get-together. He was charming, not in a loud way, but quiet, observant. When he asked for my number, I almost said no. Something about him felt too smooth. But then he smiled and said, I'll wait. That line? It broke through every wall I'd built. Fast forward a year, and we were living together. My friend said it was fast, but it didn't feel that way. Everything just flowed. Late night drives, cooking disasters, staying up until sunrise talking about dreams we'd never chase. I thought I'd finally found peace. But peace doesn't vanish overnight. It fades slowly. One missed call at a time. One new friend at work. One late meeting that didn't make sense. I didn't want to be that girlfriend, paranoid, insecure, checking phones. But the night I saw her name light up his screen, I swear my heart stopped. It wasn't a random contact. It was Jessica, his ex. He told me they were just catching up. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But every story he told after that had holes. Little ones at first. The kind that only bother you if you stare too long. But I stared. I started noticing everything. He'd step out to take calls. He'd come home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. And the worst part? He started looking at me differently, like I was a memory he was slowly trying to erase. So I decided to test him. I told him I was visiting my sister for the weekend. Instead, I stayed, watched, waited. Saturday night, 9:47 p.m., he walked in with a grin. Not the one he used to have for me. A new one. One that belonged to her. I followed him quietly as he went into the living room, placed 2 wine glasses on the table, and pulled out candles. The same kind we used on our anniversaries. Then the doorbell rang. She walked in. And just like that, my world split in half. They kissed like I'd never existed. I stood there, hidden, watching the man who once promised me forever give it away like it meant nothing. I didn't cry. Not then. I just felt numb. But that numbness? It didn't last. It turned into something darker, sharper. Because when you love someone that much, the only thing stronger than heartbreak is revenge. So I made a plan. I didn't confront him right away. No screaming, no tears, no how could you. That's what he expected. I smiled. I cooked dinner. I kissed him goodnight. I played along. I wanted him comfortable. I wanted him careless. Over the next few weeks, I started collecting proof, messages, receipts, photos. Every lie he told became another piece of the puzzle I was building quietly behind that same calm smile. He had no idea I was setting him up. The funny thing about people who cheat is that they think they're smarter than the ones they betray. They underestimate silence. They mistake it for weakness. He didn't realize my silence was the sound of a storm getting ready to hit. And when it hit, it would destroy him. I started small, moved a few things around, planted seeds of doubt, made him think she was the one who couldn't be trusted. He began to question her. The late replies, the canceled plans. It was almost poetic, watching them crumble from the same lies they'd used to hurt me. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because I didn't just want him to feel pain. I wanted him to understand it. The kind of pain that doesn't fade with time. The kind that changes you. So I planned one final move. Something he'd never forget. And when the night finally came, I was ready. When people say revenge doesn't heal you, they're half right. It doesn't fix the broken parts, but it gives you just enough fire to stop bleeding from them. After that night, I knew there was no turning back. I couldn't unknow what I saw, couldn't unsee the way he smiled at her like I was invisible. So I smiled back. Every morning, every dinner, every kiss goodnight, as if I wasn't quietly planning his downfall behind my calm eyes. Eric had a big client event coming up. He'd been bragging for weeks about how it could change everything. I made it my mission to make sure it did, just not in the way he expected. While he slept, I went through his phone, screenshots of flirty messages, voice notes, hotel receipts. I forwarded everything to my private email. I didn't want just emotional satisfaction. I wanted proof. But revenge isn't only about exposing someone. It's about timing. I started with Jessica. I messaged her from an anonymous number, attaching a few photos, her and Eric together, his texts, one of them saying he still missed me as a person. I didn't say a word. I just watched the chaos unfold. The next day, he came home quiet, too quiet. He didn't eat, didn't talk. Just scrolled through his phone like he was searching for answers that weren't there. And I knew. She'd confronted him. Phase 1, complete. Now came Phase 2. I sent the same screenshots, but to his boss, along with a polite email pretending to be a concerned coworker who noticed unprofessional behavior between Eric and a client's assistant. By the end of the week, the whispers had begun at his office. He was distracted, paranoid, constantly checking his phone. Every lie he'd ever told me was now weighing on him. But I wanted him to feel it, really feel it, the way I did when I saw them together. So I set up one final night. It was his big event, the company dinner. Everyone would be there. His boss, co-workers, even the clients he'd been trying to impress. He invited me, of course, still pretending everything was fine. I smiled, told him I wouldn't miss it. What he didn't know was that I'd already sent a little something ahead of time. A short video compilation, the screenshots, the photos, the texts, neatly edited and timed to play during his presentation, under the name Project Highlights. He had no idea. That night, I wore the dress he once said made me look like the reason he believed in love. I smiled, fixed my lipstick, and walked into that banquet hall like I hadn't spent the last month crafting poetic destruction. He looked nervous, but relieved to see me. "You look amazing," he whispered. I nodded calm. "You too. Big night, huh?" He grinned, clueless. "Yeah, biggest one yet." The room dimmed. The projector flickered on. And in those next 30 seconds, silence turned into shock. The first slide was him and Jessica at a hotel. The next was his texts, word for word. The room gasped. Someone muttered, "Is this real?" He froze. I watched his smile fade into horror. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw it. Fear. The video ended with one line he'd sent her. "She'll never find out." When the lights came back on, the room was dead silent. Then his boss stood up. "Eric, we need to talk. Now." He turned toward me, pale. "You did this." I tilted my head. "No, Eric, you did this." He tried to grab my hand, whispering, "We can fix this." I stepped back. There's nothing left to fix. And I walked out. I didn't need to see what came next. I'd already won. That night, I went home, sat on the couch, and let the quiet settle in. I thought I'd feel empty, but I didn't. I felt light. Free. Like I'd finally stopped holding my breath. Days passed. He called. Texted. Begged. Said he'd changed. Said he lost his job. That Jessica was gone. That he had nothing left. I didn't reply. One night, he showed up at my door. Eyes hollow, voice shaking. "You ruined me." I looked at him for a long moment. "No, Eric, you ruined yourself. I just helped you see it." He didn't say another word. He just stood there, broken, watching the version of me he thought he destroyed walk away stronger than ever. It's strange. I don't hate him anymore. I don't even think about him with anger. What I feel is peace. Because sometimes revenge isn't about hurting back. It's about showing someone they never had power over you, not even when they thought they did. Now, when it rains, I sit by my window with a cup of tea and watch the world move on. And I smile, because I did too. If you're still listening, thank you for staying till the end. There's more where this came from, stories that heal, stories that hurt, and stories that help you remember who you are. So, take a deep breath, hit that subscribe button, and stay a while. You deserve calm nights and stories that remind you you're stronger than you think. She said she forgave me, but forgiveness doesn't sound like that kind of silence. There's a specific kind of quiet that fills a house after a fight. It's not peace, it's not calm, it's just hollow. You start hearing the clock louder, your own breathing heavier, the air thicker. That's what our home became after that night. Mia and I had been together for 5 years. The kind of love that feels stable, routine, but safe. We weren't dramatic or fiery like other couples. We did laundry on Sundays, ordered Thai food on Fridays, and watched reruns of Friends until one of us fell asleep on the couch. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Until I broke it. It started at work because of course it did. There was this new project manager, Taylor. Sharp, confident, and, God, I hate to admit this, she made me feel seen in ways Mia hadn't for months. Mia had been distant lately, distracted. Every conversation felt like small talk between strangers who used to be in love. So when Taylor started asking about my life, my hobbies, my past, I let her. I let the attention sink in. It felt good. Too good. I kept telling myself it was harmless. Just office talk. Just coffee breaks. Just someone who laughed at my jokes again. But it never stops at just. One night, we were the last two in the office. The rain was coming down hard outside. The kind of storm that makes you feel like you're safe nowhere except in that exact moment. We've been working late on a pitch, both exhausted and wired at the same time. She leaned back in her chair and said softly, you talk about Mia a lot, but you don't sound happy. I should have walked away right there. Should have said, I love my girlfriend. I'm just stressed. Should have gone home. But instead, I just said, yeah, we've been off lately. She didn't reply. She just looked at me for a long second, and then she kissed me. And I kissed her back. It wasn't long, wasn't deep, but it was enough to undo everything I thought I was. I pulled away immediately, muttering, I can't. She apologized. I said it was fine. We both pretended it didn't mean anything. But when I drove home that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how I become the kind of person I swore I'd never be. I told myself I wouldn't tell Mia, that it would only hurt her, that I'd just forget it happened. But you can't forget something that changes the way you see yourself. Weeks went by. Things got weirder between me and Taylor. We avoided each other at work, but there were glances, guilt mixed with longing. And every time I looked at her, I hated myself a little more. Then came the night Mia found out. Not because I confessed, because life has a cruel sense of timing. We were sitting on the couch watching a movie when my phone buzzed. A text from Taylor. I miss you tonight. Mia's eyes caught it before I could lock my screen. She looked at me, then at the phone, then back at me. What's that? She asked quietly. I froze. My throat closed. I tried to speak, but no words came out. She took the phone, read the message again, then looked at me with that kind of heartbreak that doesn't explode, it crumbles. Who is she? She whispered. I started explaining, stammering, saying it meant nothing, that it was just one mistake, that I'd stopped it before it went anywhere. She just stared. Then she said, so it wasn't nothing. You just didn't have time for it to become something. That line, it broke me. She got up, walked to our bedroom, and closed the door. I sat there for hours. The sound of the rain outside matched the weight in my chest. I wanted to go to her to beg, to say I was sorry, but I didn't even know what sorry meant anymore. When she came out the next morning, her face was calm. Too calm. I need time, she said. I nodded. Whatever you need. She went to stay with her sister for a while. I thought she'd cool off, come back, we'd talk. But the days turned into weeks. The messages turned into one-word replies. The call stopped. And then, out of nowhere, she texted, I forgive you. But I can't be with you. I stared at that message for hours. Forgiveness? What does forgiveness even mean when you've already lost everything that mattered? That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't end when the other person finds out. It ends when you finally start seeing yourself as the villain in your own story. And that takes a long time. I try to move on. I deleted Taylor's number, switched projects, even started therapy. But nothing really filled that hollow space. Until one day, 6 months later, Mia reached out again. Can we talk? My heart stopped. I didn't know if it was closure or a second chance. I didn't care. I just said yes. We met at the same cafe where we'd had our first date. She looked different, stronger, somehow. Her smile was polite, distant. I'm not angry anymore, she said. I just wanted you to know that. And I realized I'd been holding on to the wrong kind of hope. Because she wasn't coming back. She'd forgiven me, truly forgiven me, but not for my sake. For hers. And maybe that's what real love looks like when it ends. Not fire, not screaming, not begging. Just a quiet kind of peace that hurts in the most honest way. But as I watch her walk away one last time, something inside me shifted. Maybe forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Maybe it just means letting go of the person you were when you broke something beautiful. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. I didn't see her again for months after that cafe meeting. No texts, no calls, no how are you. It was like she vanished, and yet she never left my mind. Everything in my apartment still whispered her name. The smell of her shampoo still clung to the towel she used the last time she stayed. The coffee mug she loved sat untouched on the shelf because I couldn't bring myself to use it. Time doesn't heal you. It just numbs you until you forget where the wound is. For a while, I told myself that I was fine. I had work, I had a routine, I had my solitude. But the truth was I wasn't living. I was surviving. Every song, every quiet evening, every scent that remotely reminded me of her brought it all crashing back. And then, one night, I saw her again. It was completely by accident. I was leaving a friend's birthday dinner, half drunk and half nostalgic, when I noticed a familiar laugh echoing down the street. That soft, breathy laugh I'd know anywhere. She was standing under the warm glow of a restaurant sign, talking to a guy. Tall, confident, sharp suit. The kind of man who looked like he had his life together. She smiled at him in a way she used to smile at me years ago. My chest tightened. I stood there, hidden behind a parked car, watching the woman I once loved, the woman I still loved, laughing like she'd never been broken. And it hit me. She wasn't broken anymore. I was. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me ashamed. Because all the forgiveness she gave me hadn't set me free. It had set her free. I went home that night and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked like a man stuck between guilt and longing, and neither side wanted to let go. That's when I started writing her a letter. Not to get her back, not to explain, just to tell her everything I couldn't say before. It started like this. Ooh, Mia, you once told me that love isn't about who you can live with. It's about who you can't live without. And yet, somehow, I'm learning to live without you. Badly, but still living. Maybe that's what growing up really means. Learning to carry the things you destroyed instead of pretending they never happened. I wrote all night. Every thought, every regret, every piece of guilt that had been rotting inside me for months poured out onto the paper. When I was done, I didn't even read it. I sealed it in an envelope, drove across town, and slipped it under her apartment door before I could change my mind. Then I left. That was supposed to be my closure. But closure is never that kind. 2 weeks later, she texted me. I got your letter. That's all she said. I didn't reply. I didn't want to pressure her. But that one message, that acknowledgement, felt like oxygen. Then, 3 days later, she called. Hey, she said softly. Mia? Yeah, I think we should talk. There was a tremor in her voice. I couldn't tell if it was nerves or something else, but I agreed immediately. We met at the same park where we used to walk her dog, back when life was simple. The air smelled like rain and wet leaves. the kind of scent that makes old memories come alive. She was already there when I arrived, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans, her hair tied up, no makeup. She looked like the girl I first fell in love with, not the one I broke. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me again," I admitted. "I wasn't sure either," she said with a faint smile. "But your letter, it felt different. It wasn't an excuse. It was real. It reminded me of the man I used to love before everything." Her voice cracked a little on that last part. I took a breath. "I'm not that man anymore." She nodded. "Maybe not, but maybe you're closer to him now than you were when we were together." We sat on the old park bench, the same one where I once told her I wanted to marry her. There was a long silence, not the hollow kind this time, but a full one. The kind that holds peace and pain in equal measure. Then she said something that hit me like a wave. "I'm seeing someone." I nodded slowly, even though it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "He's good to me," she added quickly, as if that softened the blow. "And I'm happy." But reading your letter made me realize part of me still needed to hear that you understood what you did, that you really saw it. "I do," I said. My voice cracked. Every single day, tears filled her eyes, and for a second, I saw the same love buried under everything, but still there. Not for us to act on, but to acknowledge. "I'll always care about you," she whispered. "But I think we were meant to teach each other, not stay together." That was the moment I finally understood forgiveness. Not as a gift you receive, but as something that forces you to grow. We hugged before parting ways. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't desperate. It was real. The kind of hug that says, "Thank you for the love and the lesson." I thought that was the end of our story. But life, as always, had one last twist. 3 months later, I got an email from Taylor. The subject line, "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard from her since everything fell apart. Against my better judgment, I opened it. She wrote, "I don't know if you've heard, but something happened at work. I think you should know." Attached was a screenshot, a message thread between Taylor and one of our higher-ups. Apparently, someone at the company had found out about our old office incident. HR was investigating. Taylor was panicking. It felt like my past was coming back for one last punch. I called her immediately. "What's going on?" "They found an old email," she said, "from the night of that project. Someone reported it as inappropriate conduct." I swear I didn't say anything, but my heart raced. This could destroy my career. After everything I'd done to rebuild my life, the ghost of that one mistake had come to collect its debt. I went to HR the next day. They were professional but cold. They said they just needed to confirm the details. No accusations yet. Still, the humiliation was suffocating. I'd spent months trying to become better, and suddenly I was being dragged back into the worst version of myself. I wanted to call Mia, to tell her everything, to hear her voice just once. But I didn't. I couldn't drag her back into my mess. So I faced it alone. The investigation lasted weeks. They questioned everything. Timelines, messages, witnesses. And through it all, I stayed honest. I admitted the truth. That was mutual, brief, a mistake I'd already paid for. When it was finally over, I kept my job, but I lost something else. Whatever confidence I had left evaporated. That night, I drove out of the city, parked by the lake we used to visit, and sat under the stars. The air was cold, my breath fogging in front of me, and for the first time in years, I felt empty and peaceful at the same time. I took out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and stopped at Mia's name. I didn't call her. I just looked at it, the letters, the simplicity of it, and smiled. Because I finally understood something I should have learned long ago. You can't erase your mistakes. You can only stop letting them define who you are tomorrow. And forgiveness? It's not about saying it's okay. It's about finally realizing you're not that person anymore. As I sat there, the reflection of the moon rippling on the water, I whispered to the night, "I'm sorry, Mia, but thank you." And for the first time since she left, I felt something shift inside me. Not joy, not closure, but peace. The kind of peace that doesn't come from getting someone back, but from finally letting them go. That night, I went home and opened a blank page on my laptop, and I started writing again. Not a letter this time, not a confession, a story about love, betrayal, forgiveness, and the kind of growth that only heartbreak can teach you. It wasn't for anyone else to read. It was just for me. And somehow, in that quiet, solitary act, I realized something simple and profound. Mia's forgiveness wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of mine. If you're still here, listening, don't run from the pain you caused. Don't drown in it either. Learn from it, grow through it, and let it sculpt you into someone new. Because every broken story still has the power to end beautifully if you let it. Subscribe if you believe every heartbreak still leads somewhere beautiful. What would you do if your fiancé cheated on your wedding week with your best friend? Most people would walk away, but I didn't. I made sure they'd never forget what they did to me. They say betrayal feels like being stabbed in the back. But when it happened to me, it felt more like being buried alive. My name's Rachel, and 6 days before my wedding, I found out my fiancé, Ethan, was sleeping with my best friend, Lila. We'd been together for 5 years. I thought we were unbreakable, the couple that survived every fight, every long distance, every life storm. We had this quiet understanding, this unshakable rhythm that made everyone around us say, "You two are perfect." Turns out, perfect is just another word for blind. It started with little things. Ethan coming home late from work dinners. Lila canceling our brunches at the last minute. Both of them acting a little too interested in each other's lives when we were all together. I ignored it, of course, because love makes you stupid and trust makes you blind. Then came that night. It was a Wednesday, 5 days before the wedding. I was staying at Ethan's place, finalizing our guest list. He said he had to go pick up the ring from resizing. He kissed my forehead, smiled, and left. An hour later, Lila texted me, "Hey babe, feeling sick tonight. Rain check on your call." We used to talk every night. She was my maid of honor, my sister, and everything but blood. I texted back, "Of course, rest up red heart." But something in me twisted, a strange ache I couldn't name. So I called the jewelry store to check if Ethan had picked up the ring yet. The woman on the phone said, "Oh no, ma'am. It's still here. He didn't stop by today." And that's when my world began to tilt. My hands were shaking as I opened Find My iPhone, something I'd never done before. His location showed him not at home, not near any jewelry store. He was across town, at Lila's apartment. For a second, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he was dropping off something for her. Maybe she really was sick, but my gut said otherwise. I grabbed my keys and drove. Fast. The whole way, my heart beat like a drum of dread and denial. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight that my knuckles turned white. When I got there, all the lights were off except one, her bedroom window glowing faintly. I sat there, parked on the curb, staring at that window for a full minute, tried to convince myself that I was wrong, that this wasn't real, that the people I loved most weren't inside that room, breaking me. Then I saw them, through the thin, half-drawn curtain. Two silhouettes, moving, together. And that was it. My entire world, everything I believed in, shattered. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just went cold. I drove home in silence, parked in the driveway, and sat there until the sun came up. The next morning, I called my wedding planner and told her to pause all remaining payments. I told my family that Ethan had a work emergency and the wedding might need to be postponed. I told myself that I wouldn't lose control, not yet, because if I was on a burn, I'd make sure they felt the heat too. I waited, watched, planned. The next day, Lila texted me like nothing happened. "Hey, feeling better today. Wana do cake tas chiglatir." I almost laughed. Cake tasting for the wedding she just destroyed. I told her yes. I met her at the bakery, smiled like nothing was wrong, let her talk about decorations and seating charts while I nodded and sipped my coffee. Inside, I was memorizing every word, every fake smile, every lie. At one point, she reached across the table and said, "I'm so proud of you, Ratch. You and Ethan are soulmates. I just know it." Her hand brushed mine, and I swear, I almost snapped right there. But I didn't, because I wanted this to hurt her as much as she'd hurt me. That night, when Ethan got home, I acted normal. I hugged him, told him I missed him, even cooked his favorite pasta. He looked nervous, almost guilty, but I kept my mask on perfectly. When he went to shower, I took his phone, and there it was, a string of messages with Lila. "Lila, can't stop thinking about last night." Ethan, "Me neither. I hate sneaking around, though." Lila, "Soon it won't matter. Maybe we'll tell her after the honeymoon." Ethan, "Yeah, maybe after the honeymoon." They actually planned to betray me after the vows. That's when my sadness turned into something else. Something darker. Revenge. Over the next few days, I started preparing. I made copies of everything. Texts, photos, screenshots. I even printed out their messages and tucked them in a folder labeled for later. Then I made a few calls, one to the wedding planner, one to the caterer, and one to the venue. I told them we'd be adding a special segment to the event. Something personal. They were happy to oblige. When Saturday came, I played my role perfectly. Smiling bride, excited fiancé, picture of grace and love. Everyone believed it. Ethan stood there, looking like a man who'd won the lottery. Lila sat in the front row, wearing a pale blue dress, pretending to cry tears of joy. The ceremony went on smoothly. The music played, vows exchanged, rings slipped on. I even said, "I do," with a steady voice. But I wasn't saying yes to a marriage. I was saying yes to justice. At the reception, I stood up to give my speech. The microphone crackled softly. Everyone turned toward me. I smiled sweetly, looking right at Ethan and Lila. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," I began. "It's been a long journey, and I've learned that love isn't just about finding the right person. It's about knowing who they truly are when no one's watching." People clapped. I let the silence stretch for a moment. Then I continued. "Speaking of which, I prepared a little slideshow, a timeline of our love story." The lights dimmed. The projector flickered on. At first, it showed the usual photos of us laughing, vacations, birthdays. Everyone smiled and clapped. Then it changed. The next photo was of Ethan's car parked in front of Lila's building. Then a screenshot of their texts. Then a blurry shot from the night. I caught them through a window. The room went silent. Gasps. Whispers. Someone dropped a glass. Ethan's face drained of color. Lila froze, eyes wide, lips trembling. I stood there, still smiling. "Turns out," I said softly into the mic, "some love stories don't end in forever. Some end in betrayal. But at least now everyone knows the truth." The crowd erupted, some in shock, some in anger, some trying to comfort me. Ethan stammered, reaching for me. "Rachel, please, I can explain." I stepped back. "No, you already did. In those messages." Lila burst into tears and ran out of the room. Ethan followed her. I turned back to the guests and raised my glass. "To honesty," I said, "the most underrated wedding vow." And everyone, every single person who'd ever loved me, doubted me, pitted me, raised theirs too. I didn't cry that night. Not once. Because I realized something powerful. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting them back. It's about freeing yourself from their control. Later, I left before the after-party ended. I drove to a cliffside overlooking the ocean, the place Ethan once proposed to me. I stood there in the cold wind, my dress still on, my makeup smudged, but my heart strangely steady. I didn't feel broken anymore. Just empty. Peacefully empty. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Lila. "You ruined our lives." I typed back, "No, you ruined mine first." I just returned the favor. Then I blocked her. As I turned off my phone, the tide crashed below, wild and unforgiving. And I whispered to myself, almost smiling, "You wanted to play with my heart, Ethan. But you forgot. I'm the one who writes the ending." After that night, my name spread faster than wildfire. Half the guests from the wedding uploaded snippets of the video, and within days, it was everywhere. Bride exposes cheating fiancé and best friend at wedding. At first, I was humiliated. I didn't want pity. I didn't want people turning my pain into entertainment. But then I saw the comments. Thousands of strangers calling me brave, strong, saying I did what most could never. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't rage or grief. I felt proud. Still, the story wasn't over. Because Ethan and Lila didn't just disappear after that. A week later, Ethan showed up at my apartment. I'd moved back into my old place. The one he'd always said felt too small and cold. I liked it that way. He knocked for a while before I opened the door. His eyes were red, face unshaven, suit wrinkled. "Rachel," he said quietly, "please, I just want to talk." I leaned against the doorframe. "About what? How you plan to dump me after the honeymoon? Or how you ruined my friendship and called it love?" He flinched. "I made a mistake." "No," I said. "A mistake is spilling coffee. You build a lie." He ran his hands through his hair. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. It just happened." I laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut glass. "Oh, the classic 'it just happened,' right? You just fell in her bed by accident." He sighed. "Rachel, please. I've lost everything. You humiliated me. I humiliated you." I interrupted. "You humiliated yourself." I just turned the lights on. For a moment, he just stared at me, jaw tight, like he wanted to shout, but couldn't find the courage. Then he said something that made my stomach turn. "You're cruel." I smiled faintly. "You cheated. I exposed you. That's not cruelty, Ethan. That's balance." He looked like he wanted to argue more, but I closed the door in his face before he could. And for the first time since everything began, I felt lighter. Days passed. The world moved on. People stopped talking, the buzz died down, and I started rebuilding. I picked up painting again, started therapy, joined a local book club. Life became quiet, steady, until one day my phone buzzed with an email. It was from Lila. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to say this. I loved him. I didn't plan to hurt you. He told me your relationship was already over. I believed him. Please, just know I never wanted things to end like this." I stared at her message for a long time. Then I typed back. "You knew me for 15 years. You knew we were still together. You were my maid of honor, Lila. Don't rewrite what you chose." I hit send. No anger, no hate, just truth. After that, I blocked her too. Months later, I got an invitation in the mail. A wedding invitation. At first, I thought it was a sick joke, but no, it was real. Ethan and Lila were getting married. I almost laughed. Of course they were. Two liars clinging to each other, thinking maybe if they shared the same guilt, it would feel lighter. But instead of anger, I felt curiosity. So I went. Not to crash it, not to cause a scene. Just to see. They didn't know I was there. I sat in the very back, hidden behind a large floral display. I watched them exchange vows under the same arch that was supposed to be mine. Their smiles looked forced, their hands shaky. Ethan's eyes flickered toward the crowd more than once, maybe checking to see if I'd show up. When the officiant said, "If anyone objects, speak now," I swear, his jaw clenched like he expected me to stand. But I didn't. I just sat there quietly, sipping the champagne they bought with guilt money. Their vows were empty, their kiss hollow, and I realized right then I didn't need revenge anymore. I'd already won, because they would spend the rest of their lives haunted by what they did, and I'd already let it go. After the ceremony, I slipped out unnoticed, but as I reached the exit, someone called out behind me. "Rachel." It was Ben, Ethan's cousin, one of the few people I actually liked. He jogged up, breathless, eyes wide. "You came? Just to see," I said softly. "I'm leaving." He frowned. "You know they look miserable, right?" I shrugged. "They deserve each other." Then he hesitated. "You still paint?" The question caught me off guard. "Yeah. What?" He smiled a little. "You always said you'd open a studio one day. Maybe now's the time." I didn't answer, but something about that stuck with me. A few months later, I did exactly that. I opened a small art studio downtown. Nothing fancy, just walls full of color and a big window overlooking the park. People started coming, strangers who'd heard about the wedding bride, curious to see what I'd do next. But they didn't find a broken woman. They found peace. I painted stories of heartbreak that turned into strength, of endings that became beginnings, a betrayal that birthed rebirth. Each canvas was like an exhale, a quiet release of everything that once tore me apart. And then, one afternoon, while I was finishing a piece, the door opened. It was Ben. He smiled awkwardly, holding a small coffee cup. "Thought you might need this. You always worked better caffeinated." I laughed. "You remember that?" "I remember a lot," he said quietly. "Like how you deserve someone who actually saw you." For the first time in forever, I felt my chest soften. We talked for hours. About everything. Art, life, forgiveness, mistakes. There was no pressure, no pretending, no wounds being reopened. Just two people quietly finding comfort in each other's presence. Weeks turned into months, and Ben kept showing up. Sometimes with coffee, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with nothing but a smile and that warm energy I hadn't felt in years. He didn't rush me, didn't ask for anything, just showed up, and slowly, he became the calm after my storm. One night, we sat on the studio floor after closing. The lights were low, music soft. He looked at me, hesitant but certain. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure. I know you've been through hell, and I'm not trying to fix you. I just want to be here, in whatever way you'll let me." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I smiled, small but real. That's the best thing anyone said to me in a long time. He leaned in and kissed me, not like Ethan ever did. Not rushed, not hungry, just steady. And for once, it didn't feel like betrayal or rebound. It felt like healing. A year later, I stood in my studio again, now full of people, color, and laughter. I named it Phoenix Art, because sometimes you really do rise from the ashes. Ben was by my side, smiling proud. And as I looked around, I realized something that made every tear, every sleepless night, every heartbreak worth it. You don't get closure from the people who hurt you. You get it when you decide they don't control your peace anymore. I thought my story was about betrayal, but it was really about becoming whole again. And as the rain started tapping softly against the studio windows, I closed my eyes, letting that sound carry the last of my pain away. I whispered, almost to myself, "Sometimes the best revenge is a life that doesn't need one." Then I smiled at Ben, took his hand, and let the world move forward, quietly, beautifully on my own terms. If you stayed till now, you're the kind of person who believes in healing after heartbreak. So stay a while. There are more stories waiting, and they just might remind you that no matter how deep the pain goes, peace always finds its way back. Don't go anywhere. There's another story coming, and it's one you'll feel right in your heart. I never thought I'd see the day when my own mother looked at me like I was a stranger. But that day came, and when it did, it changed everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and what it really means to be loved. Let me take you back to the start. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor either. Middle class, simple, steady. My mom, Catherine, was the type who always looked perfectly put together, even if she was just walking to the mailbox. My dad, Tom, was quiet but solid, a man who worked long hours and loved my mom more than life itself. And then there was me, Ryan, their only kid. Life was good. Boring, maybe, but good. Until it wasn't. When I turned 23, my dad had a heart attack. It came out of nowhere. One morning he was fine, making coffee and humming some old Johnny Cash song. By evening, he was gone. Mom broke that day, and for a long time, so did I. She stopped cooking, stopped smiling, stopped talking about anything that wasn't grief. But I stayed. I helped her with bills, with repairs, with groceries. I figured it was just what a son was supposed to do, until I realized she wasn't grieving alone. A few months after the funeral, I noticed something weird. She started dressing differently. More makeup, tighter dresses, perfume that reeked of roses and money. At first, I thought it was her way of coping, trying to move on. But then I found the wine glasses. 2 of them, washed, sitting neatly in the sink. I remember staring at them like they were evidence in some kind of emotional crime scene. I didn't say anything at first. I told myself she deserved happiness, even if it was too soon, even if it felt wrong. But then I met him. His name was Mark, and he was, let's just say, he wasn't the man my father was. He was slick, confident, the type of guy who smiled too wide, laughed too loud, and always smelled like expensive cologne. He owned a small real estate business in town and apparently had been helping Mom with some property paperwork. That's what she said, anyway. The first time we met, he extended his hand and said, "So you're Ryan? Huh? Heard a lot about you, kid." "Yeah." I asked. "All good things, I hope." He grinned. "Oh, sure. Your mom's proud. Says you're her rock." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. It wasn't the words, it was the tone, like he was claiming her right in front of me. That night, I asked her straight up, "Mom, are you dating him?" She hesitated. "Ryan, that's complicated." "No," I said, "it's actually really simple. Yes or no?" She sighed. "I'm seeing him, yes. But I didn't want to tell you until I was sure." "Sure about what?" "That he loves me," she said softly. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Mom," I said carefully, "he's a salesman. Guys like him say what people want to hear. You met him 3 months ago. Don't you think it's a little—" "Stop!" She cut me off, eyes flashing. "You're not your father. You don't get to tell me how to grieve or who to love." That one stung, because I wasn't trying to control her. I was trying to protect her, but she didn't see it that way. Months passed, and their relationship got serious. Mark started staying over more often, sometimes even when I was home. I'd wake up to find him cooking breakfast shirtless in my dad's kitchen. He'd wink and say, "Morning, champ," like we were buddies. It made my blood boil. Mom acted like nothing was wrong. In fact, she started acting like I was the problem, like I was some jealous kid who couldn't handle her moving on. But then the real warning signs started. First, she asked me to move out. Not rudely. She said she needed space to rebuild. Then, she sold one of Dad's old cars, without even telling me. When I asked why, she said, "Mark thinks it's time I let go of old memories." I felt like screaming. Dad's car wasn't just metal and wheels. It was the last thing that still smelled like him. But she didn't care. Every day, I saw more of her disappear and more of him take over. And the worst part? Mark started calling her baby right in front of me. It made my skin crawl. One night, I came home late from work and saw something that made everything click. Mom was sitting on the couch, crying quietly like she didn't want anyone to hear. When she saw me, she wiped her tears fast. "Oh, hey, honey, you're home. What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. But that's when I noticed the bruise on her wrist. "Mom," I said, my voice dropping. "What happened?" She hesitated, then muttered, "I fell." "Don't," I said. "Don't lie to me." She looked away, eyes glassy. "It was just an argument," she whispered. "Mark didn't mean to—" "Didn't mean to what?" I snapped. "Grab you like that? Ryan, stop. Please. You'll make it worse." That sentence, "you'll make it worse," told me everything. I stood there, shaking with anger. "You're staying with a guy who hurts you?" "He loves me," she said weakly. "Mom, love doesn't leave bruises." She didn't answer, just sat there, staring at nothing, lost in whatever spell he'd cast. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it in my head, wondering how to protect her without pushing her further away. But fate made the next move for me. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the police. They'd arrested Mark for assault. Not on my mom, but on another woman, a client. Apparently, he'd been charming multiple women around town, taking money from them under fake business deals. He was a con artist, and he'd been using my mom for months. When I rushed home to tell her, she was sitting at the kitchen table, shaking. She already knew. There was an eviction notice on the counter. Apparently, he'd convinced her to sign her house as collateral for one of his investments. Everything, the savings, the property, the car was gone. She looked up at me, eyes red and hollow. "He took everything, Ryan." And that was the moment my anger vanished. Because as much as I wanted to say, "I told you so," all I saw was my mother, broken, scared, and alone. I walked over, took her hand, and said softly, "We'll fix it. I promise." It wasn't easy. She lost the house. We moved into a small apartment. I picked up extra shifts, helped her get a job at the local library. Slowly, she started to heal, quietly, painfully, but steadily. Then one evening, she said something I'll never forget. "I thought he loved me," she said, voice shaking. "I thought I couldn't be alone." "You're not alone," I said. She smiled sadly. "No, I meant before. I was so afraid of being alone that I stopped seeing what love actually was." We sat in silence for a long time. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. "I'm sorry, Ryan," she whispered, "for everything I said, for choosing him over you." I felt tears sting my eyes. "You don't have to apologize, Mom. You were hurt. You just wanted something to make the pain stop." She nodded slowly. "I know, but I forgot that love isn't supposed to feel like pain." Months passed. We rebuilt. She got stronger, smiled more, even started volunteering at a shelter for women who'd been through the same thing. She told me once, "Sometimes we have to lose everything to understand what was worth keeping." And maybe she was right. Because as strange as it sounds, losing the house, the money, even her illusions, gave us back something we'd both lost after Dad died: each other. But I didn't know that life had one more twist waiting for us. Because a few months later, I got a call from a detective. Mark had been released on bail, and he wanted to make things right. Mom was terrified when I told her. "He'll come for me," she whispered. "He'll find me." But I didn't believe he would until I saw the note on our door. "You can't hide from me, baby. We need to talk." That's when I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. That note sat on our door like a curse. My mom read it once, then crumpled it in her shaking hands and dropped it into the sink. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The silence told me everything. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't letting that man come near her again. We went to the police first thing in the morning, filed a restraining order, and even had them patrol our street. But anyone who's dealt with someone like Mark knows how this goes. Restraining orders are just paper. They don't stop obsession. For days, nothing happened. Then one night, the phone rang. Mom was in bed. I picked up, expecting one of her co-workers or a telemarketer. But the voice that came through the receiver made my stomach turn. "You think you can hide her from me, Ryan?" It was him. "She's my world. You can't just take her away." I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles popped. "Mark, if you come near her again, I swear." He laughed. "You swear what, kid? You gonna stop me?" Then he hung up. I called the cops again. They logged it, said they'd keep an eye out. But I knew he was getting closer. 2 nights later, the power went out. No storm, no warning, just dark. Mom was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, so I grabbed a flashlight and went to check the breaker. The whole neighborhood was fine, only our place was out. And that's when I saw him, a shadow by the fence, half lit by the moon. He was standing still, watching. When I shined the flashlight, he smiled. That same disgusting, confident smile I remembered from the day we met. "Get the hell off our property." I shouted. He didn't move, just said, "She doesn't love you like she loves me." I took a step forward. "You've got 5 seconds before I call the cops again." He shrugged. "You think the cops scare me? You think you can protect her from what she really wants?" That was enough for me. I grabbed the baseball bat from the porch and marched toward him. He laughed, but when he saw I wasn't bluffing, he backed off into the dark. I called 911 again. They came, searched the area, but of course he was gone. Mom woke up crying when I told her. "I can't live like this," she said. I held her hand. "You won't have to. I'll take care of it." And I meant it. The next morning, I went to his old office. It had been closed for months, but one of the tenants in the building recognized me. "You looking for Mark?" the guy asked. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "He's been hanging around here again," the guy said, talking about some big comeback. "Real creepy dude. You should be careful." "Did he say where he's staying?" The man thought for a second. Said something about a motel near the highway. That was all I needed. I drove to every cheap motel I could find. Finally, at the Red Leaf Inn, I spotted his car. Same black BMW he'd always bragged about. I parked across the lot and waited. An hour passed, then two, then the door opened. He stepped out, wearing sunglasses and that smug grin like nothing had changed. He had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a phone in his hand. I snapped a few photos from my car. Proof. Then I followed him, not close enough to be noticed, but close enough to know where he was headed. He stopped at a pawn shop, sold something small, maybe jewelry. My stomach sank. Mom's necklace? Her wedding ring? I wanted to storm in there and break him, but I waited. When he left, I tailed him back to the motel. That night, I called Detective Warren, the same one who'd handled his last arrest. I sent the photos, the plate number, and told him what I saw. He said, "We'll look into it." But again, nothing happened. Days passed. Mark stayed quiet. Maybe he got scared. Maybe he was planning something worse. Either way, I didn't trust the calm. Then one Friday night, Mom was in the kitchen, and I heard glass shatter. I ran in, and there it was. A rock through the window. Attached to it a note. If I can't have her, nobody will. That broke something inside me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the door with the bat across my knees, waiting for him. But he never came. Instead, the next morning, Mom got a call. It was Mark again, but this time, he sounded different. Desperate. He said, "I need to see you one last time. Please, I just want to explain." She froze. "Mom," I said, "don't you dare." But she was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "If I don't, he won't stop. Ryan, maybe if I just talk to him." "No, please, just once." Against every instinct, I agreed, but only if I went with her. We chose a cafe. Public, bright, full of cameras. When we got there, he was already waiting, dressed in a clean shirt, fake smile plastered on his face. "Catherine," he said softly, standing to hug her. She stepped back. "Don't." He sighed, then looked at me. Still her little bodyguard. I didn't answer, just stared. He leaned forward. "I didn't mean to hurt you. Either of you. I lost control. You know how love can make you crazy." "Love," I said. "You conned her out of her home." He looked at Mom, pretending to tear up. "You know me better than that, baby." Mom's voice broke. "No, Mark, I finally know you exactly." He went silent. She reached in her purse and pulled out her phone. "You're done, Mark. I recorded this conversation. You just admitted you hurt me, and that you took my money." His expression changed instantly. The fake softness vanished. He lunged forward, but I was faster. I stood, slamming my hand on the table. "Sit down." The entire cafe went quiet. A manager stepped forward. "Sir, you need to leave." Mark backed off, realizing everyone was watching. He grabbed his bag and stormed out. But before he left, he leaned close to me and whispered, "You think this is over? It's not." It was over, just not in the way he expected. Detective Warren used Mom's recording and the photos I'd taken to reopen the case. They tied him to multiple frauds and a pending assault charge. Within a week, they arrested him again, this time without bail. When they told us, Mom cried in my arms for an hour straight. And for the first time, they weren't tears of fear, they were relief. Months passed. The bruises on her spirit faded, replaced by quiet strength. She started painting again, volunteering, smiling without forcing it. One night, we were sitting on the porch, the sound of rain falling softly around us. She said, "You know, I used to think love was something that needed to be dramatic, loud, passionate, consuming." I looked at her, and now, she smiled. "Now I think real love is peace. The kind that lets you sleep at night." I nodded. "Dad gave you that kind of love." She wiped her eyes. "He did, and I almost forgot what it felt like. But now, when I see you here, looking after me, I think you'd be proud." I didn't say anything, just reached over and held her hand. And for the first time since Dad's death, everything felt still. Safe. Weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside, there was a single photograph. Me and Mom, sitting on the porch. The caption scrawled on the back read, "Nice family moment. Don't forget who helped make it happen." It was him. Even behind bars, he wanted control. I burned the letter that night. Then I looked at Mom and said, "We're moving. Somewhere new. Somewhere he'll never find us." She didn't argue. We left that town behind for good. A fresh start in a quiet coastal city. Years later, sometimes I still think about him. Not out of fear, but as a reminder that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they say they love you. But no matter what mask they wear, they always leave a shadow behind. And in that shadow, we learn what love really means. Peace, boundaries, freedom. When I look at my mom now, painting by the window, humming to herself, sunlight on her face, I realize something. We didn't just survive him. We became stronger than he ever imagined. Because love isn't about who you can't live without. It's about who makes life worth living again. And in the quiet, when the rain hits the glass, I finally understand what my dad once told me before he died. "Son, protect the people you love, even from themselves if you have to." I did, Dad. I did. If you're still here, thank you for listening. Take a deep breath. Let it go. And remember, sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's how you win. If you love this story and want more just like it, hit that subscribe button before you fall asleep. New stories drop every night, with rain sounds and peace waiting for you. He promised me forever, and then used my trust like a weapon. That was the first thought that came to mind when I saw his name light up on my phone, 2 years after I thought he was out of my life for good. His name was Ethan Cole, my ex, my first real love, and the person who taught me what heartbreak actually feels like. We'd been together for 5 years. College sweethearts. Shared everything from first apartments to first dreams. I thought we'd grow old together, or at least grow through our 20s together. But instead, he grew selfish, secretive, and I grew quiet. It started small, late nights, hidden messages, sudden changes in how he dressed. I brushed it off at first. I told myself he's stressed. Everyone changes a little when work gets hard. Then came the distance. The emotional kind. The kind that makes you feel like you're sleeping next to a stranger. He'd come home late, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. He'd call me babe, out of habit, not love. And worst of all, he started locking his phone. I still remember the night. Everything fell apart. We were sitting on the couch, eating takeout, watching a movie we'd already seen a dozen times. He got a text, smiled, then flipped his phone face down. I asked, "Who's that?" He said, "Work." I said, "At 10 p.m.? He sighed, that annoyed sigh that makes you feel stupid for even asking. Then he muttered, "You're overthinking again, Claire." But I wasn't, because 2 minutes later, his phone buzzed again, and this time I saw the name flash across the screen before he turned it over. Maya Red Heart. My heart dropped. He looked at me, and I knew he knew I saw it. The air between us turned to glass. "Who's Maya?" I asked quietly. He said nothing, just stared at the paused TV screen like if he ignored me long enough, I'd disappear. So I stood up. "Who is Maya?" Still silence. Then finally, "She's just a friend." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insulting. "Do you always text your friends heart emojis at 10 p.m.? He stood too. "You're making something out of nothing, Claire." "Then show me your phone." That made him freeze. He hesitated, then said, "You don't trust me?" And that was it. That was the moment I realized he was lying. Because only guilty people turn questions into accusations. He didn't show me the phone. He went to bed instead. And I sat on the floor of our living room until sunrise, staring at the same wall we'd once painted together and wondering how everything got so ugly. The next day, I checked his laptop. I never thought I'd be the type to snoop, but love turns you into versions of yourself you never wanted to be. What I found made my hand shake. Photos, messages, videos, all of them with her. A co-worker, a woman he'd met at one of those work events I wasn't invited to. They'd been together for 7 months. 7. While I was busy planning his birthday surprise and saving for a future, he was busy living a double life. When he came home that night, I was sitting at the table with his laptop open in front of me. He froze. "Claire, I can explain." "No," I said. "You can't." He walked closer, but I stood up fast. "Don't. You don't get to touch me right now." His voice softened, fake sincere. It didn't mean anything. 7 months, Ethan. 7 months of lying to my face. That means everything. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I was confused, okay? I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't want to hurt yourself. You just didn't think I'd find out." He said nothing. So I did what I should have done months ago. I walked into the bedroom, packed a bag, and left. He didn't follow. He didn't even call. Just silence. The first month after I left him was strange. I thought I'd cry more, miss him more, feel emptier. But mostly I felt angry. Not loud, screaming angry. Quiet, simmering angry. Angry at him for breaking me. Angry at myself for letting him. I deleted his photos. Blocked his number. Tried to rebuild. Slowly, life began to feel normal again. I found a small apartment near the city, started a new job, made friends who didn't know me as Ethan's girlfriend. I even started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. For the first time in forever, I felt like me. Until he came back. 2 years later, his name showed up on my phone. No number, just Ethan Cole. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he pocket dialed me. But then came the text. I'm sorry. Please, just hear me out. I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, another one. I know I don't deserve it, but I need to see you. It's about something important. Part of me wanted to ignore it. The other part, the stupid nostalgic part, needed closure. So I agreed to meet. We met at a coffee shop near the river, one we used to go to in college. I walked in, and there he was, same eyes, same fake charm, same smile that used to melt me. Except now it didn't. "Claire," he said softly, "you look good." I sat down. "You've got 5 minutes." He exhaled, like he'd practiced this moment 1,000 times. "I messed up. I know I did. But I've changed." I smiled. "Changed? You mean after you blew up 2 lives and ghosted me?" He winced. "I deserve that. But I came here because I wanted to make things right." "How?" "You can't uncheat, Ethan." He hesitated. "I broke up with her." "Congratulations." "She wasn't you," he said quietly. That line used to work on me. Now it just sounded pathetic. "You didn't come here for closure," I said finally. "You came here to feel forgiven. You want to stop being the villain in your own story." He looked down, ashamed. "Maybe, but also, I wanted to tell you something." I leaned back. "What?" He swallowed. "She lied to me. About everything. About who she was, what she wanted. She took money from me, Claire. All my savings." I blinked. "So now you want pity?" "No, I want to help you." I frowned. "Help me?" He nodded. "She's been reaching out to people I used to know, pretending to be me, sending fake messages. She might come after you too." I stared at him. For a second, I almost believed him. Then I remembered who I was talking to. "Goodbye, Ethan." I stood up. He grabbed my wrist gently. "Please, just be careful. She's not who you think." I pulled free. "Neither are you." I didn't hear from him again for weeks. Until the night someone knocked on my door. It was almost midnight. When I opened it, there was a woman standing there. Short blonde hair, calm smile, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "Hi," she said. "You're Claire, right?" "Who's asking?" She smirked. "Name's Maya." My stomach dropped. She looked normal, not like the villain I'd pictured. She wore a business coat, had a sleek bag slung over her shoulder. "Relax," she said. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just thought we should talk, woman to woman." I froze. She walked past me, straight into my apartment, like she'd been there before. "I know what he told you," she said, sitting down on my couch. "And before you say anything, yeah, I know I shouldn't have come." I closed the door slowly. "What do you want?" She looked up at me, eyes cold. "Revenge." She pulled a small envelope from her bag and slid it across the table. Inside were photos of Ethan. With her, with other women, at bars, At hotels. Different dates, different years. How did you? She smirked. He wasn't my first. My heart pounded. What are you saying? She leaned forward. He's a serial liar. He uses women for money, attention, validation. I found out after I caught him texting 3 others. So I did what any smart woman would do. I whispered, "You took his money." She smiled. "Consider it compensation." I didn't know whether to feel disgusted or impressed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he's trying to flip the story. He's telling everyone I used him. He's painting himself as the victim." She leaned back. "And I don't like that. So you came to me to what? Team up." "Exactly." I laughed nervously. "This isn't a movie, Maya." "Maybe not. But don't you want him to feel just a fraction of what he put you through?" Her voice was calm, measured, but her eyes were full of fire. I didn't answer, because part of me did want that, desperately. For the next hour, she told me everything. How he'd conned 3 women before her. How he'd used fake investment deals to borrow money. How he'd lied about his family, his job, even his past. Everything I thought I knew about him. Fake. When she left, I sat there in shock. And for the first time, revenge didn't sound so ugly. It sounded like justice. I didn't know it then, but that night was the beginning of something dark. Something that would end in ways none of us could have imagined. Because Ethan wasn't done playing games. And neither were we. That night after Maya left, I sat in silence for a long time. The city lights from my window flickered faintly, bouncing off the photos she'd left behind. Ethan in bars, laughing, whispering to women I'd never seen before. Every smile felt like a knife. For years I'd blamed myself. Thought I wasn't enough. Thought maybe I'd done something to push him into her arms. But seeing those pictures, it hit me. He never fell. He hunted. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about Maya's words. He's trying to flip the story. He's painting himself as the victim. So I decided something. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I met Maya again a few days later. She picked a cafe downtown, the kind where nobody asked questions and the music was loud enough to hide secrets. She was already there when I arrived, black coffee, tablet in hand, calm as always. "Did you think about what I said?" she asked without looking up. I hesitated. "You want me to help you ruin him?" She smiled faintly. "No, I want to help you ruin him." Her confidence scared me a little. She wasn't emotional like me. She was deliberate, calculating, almost cold. "I'm not sure I'm built for this," I admitted. "You were built to survive him," she said softly. "That's enough." Her plan was complex. She'd been tracking Ethan's new projects, fake startups, shady crypto schemes, consulting gigs that were really just fronts for scamming investors. "He uses charm," she explained. "Pretends he has connections, reels people in, then vanishes once the money hits." "How do you know all this?" She smiled. "Because I used to help him. I thought we were partners. Turns out, I was just another mark." She slid me a folder. "This is what I've gathered. Bank records, emails, screenshots. Enough to get him investigated if we push it right." I stared at the pile. "You want me to go to the police?" "No," she said. "You and I both know how that ends. Endless paperwork, maybe a warning. He'll be gone before they move. We need something faster. Something public." It wasn't easy for me to process. I wasn't a vengeful person, but the idea of him walking around free, charming more people, lying through that same smirk, it made me sick. So I asked, "What exactly do you want me to do?" She grinned slightly. "Tell your story." "My story?" "Yeah, online, everywhere. You're articulate, you're credible, you have proof. You tell your side, not as a victim, but as a warning. And while the world is busy reacting to your post." She tapped the folder. "I'll leak this." It was wild, risky, but something about it felt right. Like the universe had handed me a chance to take my power back. We spent the next week planning. Every message, every post, every word was carefully crafted. Maya helped me rewrite my story, stripped of emotion, filled with facts, screenshots, and timestamps. We set a date, Friday, 8 p.m. That was when his new company launch was scheduled. The timing would hit like a storm. Friday came fast. All day I could barely breathe. My phone felt heavy in my hand, every minute crawling toward 8 o'clock. Maya texted, "You ready?" "As I'll ever be," I replied. At 7:59, I hit post. It was titled, "The Man Who Built His Empire on Lies, My Story." Within 10 minutes, it started spreading. By the first hour, it had thousands of shares. By midnight, it was trending. People from all over commented, women, men, even old acquaintances. Some recognized his name. Some share their own stories. It was like the internet had been waiting for someone to finally say his name out loud. Then came a fallout. By Saturday morning, Ethan's company page vanished. His LinkedIn deleted. His Instagram wiped. And my phone, it exploded with messages. Some were supportive, others less kind. But the worst one came from a number I didn't recognize. "You think this is justice? You just declared war." No name, no context. But I knew that tone. It was him. Maya called me that evening. "He reached out to you?" "Yeah." "Threatened me, basically." She sighed. "Good. That means he's scared." But her calmness didn't comfort me. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like maybe I'd poked a bear without realizing how sharp its teeth were. She promised to keep me safe, told me not to respond, to let him stew. But 2 nights later, things got worse. I came home to find my apartment door slightly open. At first, I thought maybe I'd forgotten to lock it. But when I stepped inside, I saw it immediately, my paintings torn, my laptop smashed, my photo albums scattered across the floor, and written on the mirror in red marker, "You ruined me." My knees went weak. I called the police, filed a report, but there wasn't much they could do. No cameras, no fingerprints, they said. Could be anyone. But I knew. It was him. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak made me flinch. Every shadow felt like him. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. "You think you could destroy me? Watch what happens next." I showed it to Maya the next day. She didn't flinch, just stared at the message and muttered, "He's unraveling." "What do we do?" I asked. She looked up. "We finished this." Over the next few days, Maya disappeared. She didn't answer calls, didn't show up at work, didn't reply to texts. At first, I thought she was just lying low. But after 3 days, I started to worry. Then on the 4th night, I got another text from an unknown number again. "You think you know the whole story? Ask your friend where she was 2 years ago." I froze. I read it again, trying to make sense of it. Then again, because 2 years ago was when Ethan cheated. 2 years ago was when I left. I tried calling Maya, still nothing. So I did something I hadn't done since that breakup. I went digging. I searched her full name online. Nothing at first, just business listings and photos. Then I found an old local news article. The headline read, "Local woman implicated in investment fraud. Partners still missing." My breath caught. The photo wasn't clear, but the name was the same. And the date? 2 years ago. The partner who went missing? Ethan Cole. I sat there in shock, my mind spinning. Was she part of his past? Was this all some twisted setup? I needed answers. I drove to the address listed in that article, an old apartment complex across town. When I got there, I knocked. No one answered, but I heard movement inside. I knocked again. "Maya, it's me." Open the door. After a long pause, it creaked open. She looked different, tired, pale, eyes dark with exhaustion. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "About the fraud case. About you and him." She sighed and sank into a chair. "Because it's complicated." "Then explain it." She rubbed her temples. "Fine. You want the truth? I wasn't his victim, Claire. I was his partner. At first, we built the scam together. Fake startups, fake accounts, everything. But I didn't know he was using my name on all the paperwork. When the money disappeared, it looked like I took it. I blinked, stunned. So all this time, I was trying to clear my name. I didn't come to you just for revenge. I needed someone who could help me prove what he did. Someone he'd hurt enough to listen. I didn't know what to feel. Betrayed? Confused? Both. She looked up. He's dangerous, Claire. More than you think. You have to get out before he drags you into this, too. Before I could reply, there was a loud knock at the door. Maya froze. He's here. My blood ran cold. How do you know? She whispered, because he always knocks twice. The knocking came again, louder this time. Open the door, Maya, a voice shouted. It was him. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the cops, but Maya stopped me. Don't. He'll be gone before they come. Then, without warning, the knocking stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Maya peeked through the peephole. He's walking away. I exhaled, shaking. We have to go to the police. She nodded slowly. We will. But first, there's something I need to show you. She led me to her bedroom and pulled out a flash drive from under a floorboard. This is everything, she said. Emails, accounts, offshore transfers. Proof of everything he did. Enough to bury him legally. I took it. Then let's use it. She smiled faintly. We will. But not yet. Not until he makes his next move. That move came sooner than either of us expected. 2 nights later, Ethan posted a video online. A shaky recording of himself, looking desperate, claiming that we had framed him. He showed cropped screenshots, twisted evidence, and told a story that made him look like a heartbroken man destroyed by 2 vengeful women. The internet went wild. Half believed him, half didn't. My inbox filled with hate. Maya's business page got spammed. We were both drowning in his manipulation again. That night, I sat staring at my reflection in the mirror, the same one he'd once written, "You ruined me" on. And I realized something. He wasn't just trying to ruin my peace. He was trying to rewrite history. So I decided this ends now. I met Maya one last time, this time at a quiet overlook above the city. The air was cold, the skyline glittering below. This is it, I said, holding up the flash drive. We leak it all tonight. She hesitated. Are you sure? Yes. He's not going to control the story anymore. She nodded slowly, then smiled. A sad, almost proud smile. Then let's finish it. We uploaded everything. Every document, every photo, every bank statement. Sent copies to journalists, law enforcement, even old investors. By sunrise, Ethan's name was everywhere. This time for real crimes, not heartbreak. Fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. The house of cards collapsed overnight. 3 days later, he was arrested. They caught him trying to board a flight under a fake name. When I saw his mugshot on the news, something inside me unclenched for the first time in years. Not joy, not vengeance, just peace. A month later, I visited Maya again. Her apartment looked lighter, like she'd finally opened a window after years of darkness. They're dropping the charges against me, she said softly. They finally saw the evidence. I smiled. That's good. She nodded. You know, I never thought I'd meet someone who understood what he did to me. But you didn't just survive him. You destroyed the cycle. I said quietly, we both did. We sat there in silence for a while, 2 women bound not by pain anymore, but by the power of having reclaimed it. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about Ethan. Not with hate, just pity. Because men like him never win forever. They burn through people like matches and always end up choking on the smoke. And as for me, I'm free. Free from his lies, his shadow, his power. I paint again. I laugh again. I even love again. Not because I forgot, but because I finally remembered who I was before him. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you stop needing them to. And for the first time in years, I don't need Ethan Cole to say a single word, because his silence says enough. And if you've ever been broken by someone who played you, lied to you, or made you question your worth, I hope you remember this. They might win a moment, but you'll win the story. Don't stop until you do. Stay till tomorrow. New stories are coming that'll pull your heart in again. But for now, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and just let it all go. If you haven't yet, subscribe. You won't want to miss what's next.